Chapter 280. Who was she? Shi Shang was completely dumbfounded. Why was there someone who looked exactly like Minai? System, come out. I think we really need to have a good chat about life. That idiot system must have randomly added another plot. Host, I've reminded you before that the plot's difficulty has increased, so it's normal for anything to happen. Normal my ass. Was the plot's difficulty increased for you to randomly add plots? Who was this little bitch? Tell me. Host, I didn't randomly add plots. These plots were all preset, so how could it randomly change them? The host thought too highly of it. Then tell me who that little bitch was. She clearly remembered that the original host setting was to be a loner. Loner, you know that? She had no blood relatives. Did this little bitch who looked like a twin pop out from a crack in a rock? Host, you're so scary. This system chooses to shut down and go offline. Shi Shang didn't get a response from the system, so he fell into a state of frenzy. Shi Shang swung the iron sword in his hand and charged out. When a person suddenly rushed out, the people over there were startled. But when they saw the person charging out and fighting with the person they were besieging, they became even more suspicious. When they got a clear look at the person's face, they were all shocked. Why were there two Minai? Team leader, hurry up and come back. There's a demon. Minai number 2 probably didn't expect Shi Shang to suddenly charge out, so she was caught off guard and was beaten down by Shi Shang. Is it fun to pretend to be me? You dare to use I's face to do bad things? Fuck, I haven't even done that before. Why are you hiding? If you're so good at pretending to be I, then don't hide. Shi Shang was probably really angry, for he attacked viciously. Minai number 2 saw that she couldn't beat him and wanted to run. But before she could take 2 steps, Shi Shang stopped her. Why are you running? Minai number 2. If I don't run, am I going to wait to be chopped into mincemeat? She didn't know that she was this strong. And that sword. It was really lucky that she was able to scare her just now. Big sis. Minai number 2 quickly calmed down and smiled. Do you want to talk about this in front of so many people? Sister, you're a big-headed ghost. Why didn't I know that I had such a big sister? Why can't you say it in front of me? Shi Shang replied gruffly with a fierce look on his face. Minai number 2. Wasn't she curious that I called her big sister? Wasn't she curious that I had her face? This reaction was not what she had expected. Minai number 2 grew anxious when she saw the people trying to surround them. Big sis, they're from the BHA. Let's leave first. Shi Shang sneered, a bunch of idiots scared you to this extent and you still have the nerve to call me sister. Minai number 2's lips twitched. How come she didn't know that Minai was such an arrogant person? He actually dared to call the BHA a bunch of retards. If they were really retarded, would the vampires have signed an alliance treaty with them 100 years ago? Minai number 2's expression turned cold as she attacked Shi Shang, but this was only a feint. When Shi Shang was about to counterattack, she abruptly dashed towards the roof. Shi Shang raised his iron sword and watched as her figure disappeared from the roof. His mind was filled with, where did this idiot come from? Shi Shang was in a bad mood and didn't want to deal with people who were courting death. Before those people could even get into their attacking positions, he also jumped off the roof and disappeared into the night in the blink of an eye. The BHA members who had been completely ignored. What amazing jumping ability! Come down and fight me one-on-one if you have the guts. Shi Shang chased after Minai number 2, but her aura disappeared near a small building. Shi Shang stood outside the building and looked at it with one hand propping his chin up. The building only had 4 floors and was very old. Who knew how long it had been there? It looked very strange to be sandwiched in the middle of a cluster of tall buildings. Shi Shang looked at it for a moment, then dragged his iron sword inside. The inside of the building looked like it had been abandoned, but there was a faint smell of blood coming from inside. The deeper he went, the stronger the smell of blood became. Shi Shang used his iron sword to knock on the scrap metal inside, the sound echoing into the distance. Shi Shang looked around. This place looked a bit like a dilapidated laboratory building. He walked and stopped, and finally stopped in front of a rusty iron door. He used his iron sword to cut off the chain on the door, and the door creaked. A foul stench and the smell of blood came from inside. The scene inside the door was completely different from the outside. The equipment inside was all brand new, and the foul stench came from a corpse on an operating table. Shi Shang frowned and walked closer to take a look. It was a vampire. Someone was secretly researching vampires? Shi Shang didn't find anyone in this dilapidated building, but he saw several clean laboratories that were obviously in use. Why did that Me Nai number 2 lure her here? Click, click. A series of sounds rang out around Shi Shang. Shi Shang's face didn't show any reaction as he stared calmly outside the building. A black shadow flashed. The woman wearing her face smiled sweetly and waved at him, her lips opening and closing. Shi Shang couldn't hear what she was saying, but she seemed to remember something as well. She flashed away, then came back a moment later, holding a piece of white paper. A few words were written on the paper with bright red liquid. Take care of yourself. It was a very meaningful sentence. Shi Shang cocked his head to the left and right, the corners of his mouth slowly curling up. It was like mockery and disdain. Outside, Me Nai number 2's expression changed, and she quickly disappeared with the paper. Shi Shang walked to the shattered glass window and knocked on the air with his sword. Bzzzt bzzzt. A resistance came from the iron sword. What were they trying to do? Shi Shang raised his sword, deep in thought. Not far from the building, a figure stood under a green tree. The shadow obscured his face, but from the figure, it was clear that it was a man. He held a pair of binoculars, which was pointed at Shi Shang's location. Master, we've trapped her. Me Nai number 2 appeared out of nowhere and stood respectfully and carefully behind the man. Why aren't we killing her? Me Nai number 2 asked in confusion. If they'd already trapped her, it would be easy for her master to kill her. She's still useful. The man's voice was a bit hoarse, and it was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. That's not something you should be asking. Me Nai number 2's expression changed, and she lowered her head in fear. Ling Xiang has overstepped her boundaries. Please forgive me, master. Let's go. The man put away the binoculars and turned to leave. Ling Xiang glanced in the direction of the house before following the man's footsteps and disappearing into the night. Shi Shang. You promised to be my mother. Why did you have to lock me up? Little fairy. Didn't I just want you to show off? How can you show off without a reason? Shi Shang. Although I feel like something's off, it does make sense. Chapter 281. 5 Elements Formation. Shi Shang hadn't expected to see such a thing in this plane. It was actually quite powerful. But then he realized that it was normal. This plane had spiritual energy, which meant that some special people in this plane needed spiritual energy. Activating the 5 elements formation required the use of spiritual energy. But why did they only trap her and not kill her? Could it be that they couldn't bear to kill her because she was too beautiful? TSK. Shi Shang propped up the old equipment next to him with the iron sword. His faint voice rang out in the darkness. You made the right choice. You can live a few more days. Go break the formation. Shi Shang let go of the iron sword. Buzz buzz. The iron sword seemed reluctant. Do you want me to do it? Shi Shang raised his eyebrows and asked. Buzz. If you don't want to go, then we'll be trapped here for the rest of our lives. Shi Shang sat down at a nearby table. Iron sword. Master, is it really okay for you to be so willful? Someone is plotting against you outside. Aren't you going to cut them down? How can you let those little bitches be so arrogant? What's with my master's temper suddenly becoming better? I don't understand. Waiting online. Urgent. In the end, the iron sword reluctantly went to break the formation. It was a small matter that could be solved with just a lift of its master's arm. Why did it have to go? The iron sword felt wronged. So it was very rough when it broke the formation. By the time it broke the formation, the entire building had collapsed. Shi Shang's face was covered in dust. The iron sword stood calmly in front of Shi Shang. It wasn't its fault that the building couldn't withstand the torment. Shi Shang wiped his face, patted the dust off his skirt, and walked out expressionlessly with the iron sword. Shi Shang acted as if nothing had happened. He went back to the villa to take a shower and change his clothes. He even leisurely went to Liang Ji's place to take a look. The system was as confused as the iron sword. Why was the host so calm this time? This didn't make sense. She should be so angry that she could jump up and destroy the world. Was there something wrong with the system today? That must be it. Shut down. Restart. The host was leisurely watching a movie. Host, this system is afraid of you. Master, come quickly. The host's brain has been flooded with water. After 3 days of strange peace in Shi Shang, they finally set off for the blood race. There was a barrier between the blood race and humans. When the blood race banquet began, there would be blood race receptionists in the ancient castle outside the barrier. Humans usually moved in groups, while vampires moved alone. Shi Shang took the invitation and handed it to the vampire receptionist who was guarding the barrier. The vampire receptionist placed the invitation on a desk, and a red frame immediately popped up on the computer screen beside it. The receptionist looked up at the Shi Shang in confusion. They could only see the level of the invitation, but not who was holding it. This invitation card was S-grade, a high-class invitation card. Those who could hold an S-grade invitation card were either pure-blooded vampires or important figures with lofty positions in certain large families. Therefore, the receptionist carefully placed the invitation card again, but the result was the same. He returned the invitation to Shi Shang and raised his guard. "I'm sorry, madam, but I can't use your invitation." "Why?" Shi Shang asked calmly. "According to the information, your invitation card has already been used." The receptionist's words were very tactful. He didn't directly say that she had a fake invitation card. It had been used. Shi Shang smiled mockingly, trapping her and pretending to be her to attend the blood race banquet. His motive was really curious. Just when the receptionist thought that the woman was going to make trouble, she took the invitation card back and said with a smile, "Can you help me contact Kuer?" The receptionist was shocked. This woman knew Prince Kuer? Of course. "Please wait a moment, madam. Not everyone in the blood race knew some of the people with lofty statuses. Therefore, when encountering such a situation, the receptionist would always be cautious and ask for confirmation." He turned around and dialed Kuer's internal line. "Hello, is Prince Kuer there? It's like this. There's a problem with this lady's invitation card. She seems to know Prince Kuer, so we'd like to ask Prince Kuer." The receptionist turned to Shi Shang. "May I ask your name, madam?" "Mi Nai." The receptionist almost dropped the phone in his hand. "Mi Nai, Prince Kuer's adopted daughter? What the hell was there to confirm?" All the blood race knew that Prince Kuer had a very doting adopted daughter. However, only a few blood race members had seen her before. The receptionist hung up the phone, trembling. His previous attitude could be said to be neither servile nor overbearing, but now it was respectful. "The prince will send someone to pick you up. Please wait here for a moment." Shi Shang was led to a private lounge. The receptionist came out, trembling with fear, and patted his chest. Fortunately, this person had a good temper. If it was someone else, they would probably have gotten into a fight already. When he looked up and saw that someone had come in, he immediately restrained his emotions and smiled at the newcomer. Half an hour later, a man and a woman entered the lounge. The man looked old, but the woman was very young. She was dressed like a student and looked around cautiously. "Please show me your invitation card." The man handed over the invitation card, and the receptionist quickly saw the grade of the invitation card. It was actually A rank. Only the powerful and prestigious blood hunters would be able to receive an A-rank invitation. He calmly returned the card. "Please come in. There will be someone to lead you to the blood race." Please carry the invitation card with you at all times. Don't lose it. Second uncle. The woman called out timidly. Just follow me. The man's face was stern. Don't be afraid. The woman nodded and followed the man inside. However, she stopped after a few steps. A group of people suddenly came out of the castle. The man in the lead was young and handsome, with flowing silver hair. He wore a tuxedo, and his every movement exuded elegance and nobility. The man pulled the woman back a few steps. The man only glanced at them indifferently, his eyes emotionless. It was as if he didn't care about them at all. He had the oppressive aura of a superior, and no one dared to look at him directly. Your Highness Rui. The receptionist had appeared beside them at some point. He placed a hand on his chest and bowed. Rui raised his eyebrows and said in an intimate tone, "Where's the little princess?" "In the lounge." "Your Highness, this way please." The receptionist led the way and soon disappeared from the lounge. After Rui left, the woman heaved a sigh of relief. Second uncle, who was that person? Prince Ker's eldest son. The man lowered his voice and replied, "Is he very powerful?" The woman frowned and looked over. Prince Kerr. A prince should be very powerful, right? The man pressed her head and said in a low voice, "After you go in, don't ask, don't look, and don't run around. Just listen, understand?" The woman nodded in confusion. "Yes, second uncle." Asterisk, serious face. Please vote. Chapter 282. 100 years ago, Mi Nai's family had been wiped out in the Great War before the Bloodlings and vampire hunters signed the treaty. Only the underage Mi Nai remained. Later, Ku'er adopted her. Ku'er's family treated her well, and she was very grateful to them. However, she felt that she didn't fit in, so she left the Bloodlings and lived alone in the human world. Ku'er probably didn't know that Mi Nai had been captured by the BHA. If he knew, he definitely wouldn't have let her die. Shi Shang propped up his chin as he recalled Mi Nai's life with Ku'er's family. The heavy door was suddenly pushed open, and a tall figure pounced on him. "Little princess, let big brother hug you." Shi Shang immediately dodged, and Rui missed and fell onto the sofa. Rui pulled his face up from the soft sofa and looked at Shi Shang with some resentment. "Little princess, it's been so long. Didn't you miss me? I'm so sad I can't breathe. I need a kiss from little princess." Shi Shang was speechless as he watched Rui put on an act. This man, Rui, Ku'er's first child. He had watched Mi Nai grow up and loved to dress up as her. It was fine before she was adopted. After all, she was in her own home, and it was difficult for Rui to dress up. But ever since he was adopted by Ku'er, Rui practically treated Mi Nai like a doll. Changing into more than 10 outfits a day was considered light. Shi Shang suspected that he was the main reason Mi Nai ran away from home. Shi Shang quickly stood up. She didn't want to go through the same torture as Mi Nai. But Rui clearly wasn't going to let her go. He climbed up from the sofa without kissing her. "Little princess, why are you dressed like this?" "Good thing I came prepared. Bring the things in." The people waiting outside immediately brought the things in and blocked the door with practiced ease. Shi Shang. She was now 100% sure that this guy had forced Mi Nai to run away. Rui had already picked out a few exaggerated dresses and brought them to Shi Shang. "Little princess, which one do you like? I think pink suits your skin, but it's a bit monotonous. Blue is too dark and makes you look old. How about white? This one looks better." Shi Shang looked at the dress in his hand. His mouth twitched. Were they trying to dress her up as Snow White or White Lotus? No matter which one it is, I'll reject it. Shi Shang took a deep breath. "I want to see foster father first. What's so good about him? He's just an old man." Rui was displeased. "We should dress up beautifully. You'll be the most dazzling princess at the Feast of the Vampires." "Shi Shang, that old man is your father. Come, little princess, quickly change into it. Rui approached the Shi Shang with the white gift in his hand. He had a strange look on his face that resembled a weird uncle looking at a little lowly. In the end, Shi Shang couldn't hold back and beat Rui up. In the past, when the host was annoyed by Rui, she would also beat him up. Shi Shang's beating was completely in line with the host's behavior. "Little princess, why are you becoming more and more violent?" Rui sprawled on the carpet without a care for his image as he wailed bitterly, "How can you get married like this? Girls need to be virtuous, virtuous. How many times have I told you?" Shi Shang resisted the urge to beat Rui up again. Instead, he pushed aside the people blocking the door and walked out. Rui hurriedly stood up and smoothed out his messy hair. As soon as he left the room, he was once again the elegant and noble Prince Rui. The people following behind him all lowered their heads. Every time their prince met Minai, he would split into two. They were already used to it. Really, they were used to it. "Little princess, is the human world fun?" Rui walked beside Shi Shang. "It's not like you can go whether it's fun or not." Shi Shang smiled wickedly. As the eldest son of a prince, Rui absolutely couldn't leave the vampires. Only the eldest son could inherit the position of prince. "Little princess." Rui's expression was bitter. The little princess had turned bad in the human world. Shi Shang couldn't be bothered with this lunatic. As soon as he entered Prince Ke's territory, he shook him off and flew towards the castle. Minai had lived in Ke for nearly 100 years, so almost everyone here knew her. "Your Highness Minai, you've returned?" The castle's maids were all surprised to see Shi Shang. "Your Highness Minai, Your Highness Minai." Shi Shang nodded at them with a smile. "Is foster father here?" These maids used to treat the original Shi Shang quite well. They were also very cute, so Shi Shang was willing to treat them gently. "Ah, he's here, he's here. But the prince has a guest right now. Your Highness, why don't you return to your room and rest for a while?" A maid rushed to answer. "Your Highness' room has already been cleaned. Your Highness Rui." Another series of salutes came from behind. Shi Shang hurriedly ran upstairs, not forgetting to instruct the maids, "Stop him." The maids all burst into laughter and went up to stop Rui, who came in after him. Quite a commotion ensued. When Minai returned, she felt as if the usually deserted castle had suddenly become lively. Shi Shang found Minai's room based on his memory. As expected, the coffin in the room was extremely exquisite and luxurious. Shi Shang stayed in the room for a while before someone knocked on the door, saying that Ke wanted to see him. Shi Shang was afraid of running into Rui, so he asked the maid who led the way. The maid replied with a smile, "Don't worry, Your Highness. His Highness Rui went to the banquet and won't be back for a while." Only then did Shi Shang relax and nod. She really couldn't stand Rui's passionate way of tormenting her. When they went upstairs, Shi Shang saw a car leaving the courtyard below and raised his eyebrows. Who was in that car? The person leaving now should be the guest Ke had just met. The maid looked over as well. "Your Highness, I don't know." Shi Shang didn't ask any more questions and followed the maid to Ke's study. The door to Ke's study was open. The maid knocked on it and let Shi Shang in. The light in the study was very soft. A tall figure stood in front of the window, looking out. "Foster father." Shi Shang called out obediently and looked out of the window, just in time to see the car disappear around the corner. Ke turned around. He was a very handsome man who looked a little like Rui. If they weren't father and son, they would definitely look like brothers when they stood together. His sharp eyes softened the moment he saw Shi Shang. "Little girl, you're still willing to come back." Ke's tone was affectionate, but there was also a hint of helplessness in his voice. "Now that you're back, you're being blocked outside. Where am I supposed to put my old face if word gets out?" Shi Shang smiled faintly, as if he had retracted all his sharp and thorny aura. "That's my fault. I'm too unknown. The bloodlings almost don't recognize me anymore." You little brat, Kerr scolded with a smile. How are you getting used to life outside? Pretty good. Look at your complexion. You're so pale. Pretty good. You're lying through your teeth. Shishang, how did my complexion look pale? Don't I look radiant and dazzling? Asterisk thank you to the cherub who tipped me. Aw, please vote. Chapter 283. After chatting with Ku'er for a while, Shishang was certain that Ku'er truly treated me nigh as his own child, so she couldn't help but become more docile and polite. Someone's pretending to be you? Ku'er's expression immediately darkened when he heard Shishang's reason for being barred from entering. Who would have the guts to pretend to be you? I'll send someone to investigate right now. Godfather, don't worry. I can handle it myself. How can that be? Ku'er was already getting angry. Godfather, you have to believe me. Shishang looked at Ku'er. I've already grown up. Ku'er froze for a moment before bursting into laughter. All right, I'll do as you say. Godfather will back you up if anything happens. Shishang smiled but didn't say anything. After a few seconds he said, Godfather, be careful these days. I'm not sure either. I'm worried that someone might do something in secret. It's never wrong to be careful. Ku'er nodded, his expression turning serious. You've heard about the election of a new king as well? Seeing Shishang nod, Ku'er continued, Us old fellows won't participate. The new king will be chosen from the younger generation. You're a purebred vampire, so you hold an important vote in your hands. If someone knows that you're back, they'll definitely come knocking on your door. Stay in the castle for the next few days. If there's anything you need, just tell Rui to do it for you. Ku'er looked at Shishang with pity. If her parents were still alive, she would also have a chance to participate in this election. But without blood, even if she ascended to the throne, she wouldn't be able to go far. Will Rui participate? Shishang didn't answer Ku'er's question and changed the topic without batting an eyelid. No. Ku'er turned behind the desk and sighed. It's not that easy to sit on the throne. Of course it wasn't that easy to sit on the throne. Shishang and Ku'er chatted for a bit before leaving the study and returning to their rooms. The moment she entered the room, she was shocked by the room full of clothes. What was all this for? Your Highness, you're back. A servant was tidying up the clothes when she saw Shishang enter. These things. Shishang hesitated. The servant smiled. His Highness Rui ordered them to be brought here. When your Highness isn't here, His Highness Rui will prepare clothes for you every month. There's every style. Shishang. This disguise maniac. There was barely any space left in her room. There's no need to tidy them up. Take them all out and prepare a few sets of the ones I'm wearing. She didn't want to wear an exaggerated princess dress full of pink lace. He would definitely be a hindrance in a fight. The maid didn't ask much. She asked someone to take the clothes away, but she didn't take them away. Instead, she put them in the room next door. Shishang craned his neck to take a look. Immediately, he pulled his head back. Can you imagine a room full of clothes? If she opened an online shop, it would be enough for her to sell for a few years. The vampire banquet would be held a month later. During these few days, vampire hunters and vampires from all over the world would rush over. As the eldest son of the prince, Rui was in charge of the safety of the banquet, so he spent very little time in the castle. Shishang heaved a sigh of relief. If this guy was in the castle, she would be tortured to death. Shishang stayed in the castle for a few days and didn't go anywhere. When she woke up that day, she found that the servants in the castle were very busy. What are you doing? Shishang asked casually as he walked down the stairs. We have a guest coming today. The prince asked us to prepare. A guest? Who is it? The maid shook her head innocently. I don't know. Shishang walked out of the castle just as Ku'er came in from outside. Godfather, you have a guest, Shishang called out obediently. Ku'er's face was cold. He didn't even look at Shi Sheng. He snorted coldly. You said someone was impersonating you. Someone is coming today. Shi Sheng blinked. He knew what Ku'er was talking about. The woman who was impersonating her was coming. But, Godfather, don't be angry. Let's see what she wants. Ku'er patted Shi Sheng's head. He had raised his daughter for so many years. How could he not tell the difference between the real and the fake? At noon, a car drove in from outside. Ku'er had instructed the servants in the castle not to show too many of them. Only a few of the calmer ones were left. Therefore, the cute and lively maids gathered in Shi Sheng's room. Ah, she really looks like Your Highness? Your Highness, what do you think she wants? As a purebred vampire, Your Highness has a ring that represents her identity. That ring can't be duplicated. Let's see what she says later. The maids were discussing fervently. Shi Sheng stood by the window. The person downstairs had already entered the castle. That woman was dressed similarly to her. Most people wouldn't be able to recognize her. Your Highness, hurry up. Let's go take a look. The maids opened the door and waved at Shi Sheng. What's there to see? I'm standing right here. Haven't you seen enough? Shi Sheng raised his eyebrows and smiled wickedly. The maids covered their mouths and laughed. Your Highness, you're almost as narcissistic as Prince Ru'ei. Am I not good-looking? Yes. Your Highness is the most good-looking, the maids agreed. Their Highness was truly good-looking. In the end, Shi Sheng couldn't dissuade these maids who had lived for hundreds of years but were still as curious as newborn babies. Thus, he was escorted by them to take a look at the impostor. Ku'er received them in the castle's guest hall. Shi Sheng and the others were standing in the corner of the second floor, so they could see the scene below. Ku'er sat in the main seat and stared expressionlessly at the woman across from him. Ling Xiang's hands tightened on her lap as she considered her words. Godfather. Slap. Ku'er slapped the table angrily. So you still know to come back. Ling Xiang trembled. Didn't they say Prince Ku'er doted on Minai? What was going on? Was he angry because Minai had left the clan? Ling Xiang calmed down and lowered her head in guilt. Godfather, this child is unfilial. Please don't be angry. Ku'er harumphed coldly. Do you know how much damage you've caused to our family by running away? Running away? What the hell? She didn't understand at all. Master didn't say anything about this. But Ku'er couldn't be spouting nonsense, right? Could it be that this was done in secret and outsiders didn't know about it? That was very likely. After all, Minai was adopted, not Ku'er's biological daughter. Ling Xiang's mind filled in the blanks, and she thought she understood the truth. She had come here to gain Ku'er's trust, so if she didn't answer, she would definitely arouse suspicion. Thus, Ling Xiang could only grit her teeth and reply, Godfather, I know I've wronged you, but this concerns my lifelong happiness. No matter what, I have to fight for it. Ku'er's expression turned even colder. The group of people standing on the second floor suppressed their laughter. The prince was too good at tricking people. Since when did Her Highness have an engagement? According to Prince Ru'ei and the prince's intentions, they wanted nothing more than to raise Her Highness in this castle for the rest of her life. Asterisk, do you think I'm pretty? Do you want to vote? Chapter 284. Ling Xiang complained tearfully, but Ku'er kept a straight face the entire time, as if he really was a father who had suffered a great loss because of his daughter's escape from marriage. Shi Sheng leaned against the railing, his expression somewhat listless. Although this woman had figured out Minai's habits, she still didn't know some of her subtle actions. If Ku'er didn't truly care about the original owner, he might really have been deceived. There's a guest? A maid had appeared at some point and was looking outside through the open window. Shi Sheng turned her head to take a look. Isn't this the guest's carriage from a few days ago? Your Highness, there's an esteemed guest. At that moment, the castle steward rushed in from outside and glanced at Ling Xiang with displeasure. Just as the steward finished speaking, someone walked in from outside. He walked in against the light, his figure swaying in the light, like a saint descending from a temple. Ling Xiang's expression shifted. Why is it him, Lord Shi-yin? Ku'er immediately stood up and cautiously greeted him. Why didn't you inform us of your arrival? Shi-yin's gaze landed on Ling Xiang. His expression didn't change, but his lips curved slightly. I just happened to pass by. Ku'er was suspicious. How could someone pass by from where he lived? Despite his suspicions, Ku'er led Shi-yin to the seat of honor. His careful attitude made Ling Xiang even more nervous. Who was this man? He was the closest to me nigh at school, but then he disappeared. She had no idea what had happened between them. What kind of reaction should she have right now? Ling Xiang had thought this mission was quite simple, but ever since she stepped into the castle, nothing had gone smoothly. Shi-yin glanced at Ling Xiang with a smirk. Me nai, don't you recognize me? Cold sweat broke out on Ling Xiang's back. Why did she feel like this man's smile was so terrifying? That gaze seemed to be able to see through her. Did me nai offend him? Lord Shi-yin knows my daughter? Ku'er was suspicious. He hadn't heard me nai mention this before. I know her, of course I know her. Shi-yin chuckled and cast a sidelong glance at Ling Xiang. He suddenly beckoned her over. Come here. Ling Xiang looked at Ku'er. This wasn't his daughter, so he didn't react at all. His mind was filled with thoughts of how did me nai know Shi-yin? Ling Xiang gritted her teeth and carefully walked up to Shi-yin. Shi-yin was seated while Ling Xiang was standing, so he frowned in dissatisfaction. Squat down. Ling Xiang looked at Ku'er again, but there was still no reaction from him. She pinched the hem of her dress and squatted down, tilting her head slightly to look at Shi-yin. This man was indeed very handsome, but he gave her a very bad feeling. She just wanted to get out of here. Shi-yin stretched out his index finger and lifted Ling Xiang's chin slightly, looking left and right. Not bad. Suddenly, he looked at Ku'er. I wonder if your highness can give her to me? Shishang almost rushed down and slashed the man who had run away from home a few times. He actually came to the vampires to abuse his power without saying a word. Now, he had to deal with an impostor. This bastard. The maids suddenly felt a chill around them. They took a step back and communicated with each other with their eyes. What happened to His Highness? Ling Xiang did not expect this man to ask for her the moment he opened his mouth. Her pupils constricted involuntarily. Is your highness unwilling to part with her? Shi-yin's smile widened when Ku'er remained silent. Your highness, how has my daughter offended you? Ku'er snapped out of his daze and hurriedly asked carefully. Shi-yin's voice rang out faintly. That's a serious crime. Ku'er's heart thumped as his gaze landed on Ling Xiang. If he gave this impostor to Shi-yin, it would be fine if he didn't find out, but if he did, the one to suffer would be Minai. My daughter is young and does not know any better. Please forgive her, your highness. Ku'er's voice was sincere. Ling Xiang sighed in relief when she heard Ku'er's words. Shi-yin was thinking about something. He didn't speak for a long while. The atmosphere was heavy, so heavy that it was hard to breathe. After a while, Shi-yin waved his hand. Forget it. I don't want to see her. Ku'er gave the steward a look, and the steward immediately brought Ling Xiang away. Once Ling Xiang left, Shi-yin suddenly looked in the direction of the second floor. You're much more composed than before. Huh? Ku'er was dumbfounded. What was he talking about? Then, he saw his daughter jump down from the second floor and aggressively rush toward Shi-yin. Before Ku'er could react, she had already dragged him out the door. Godfather, I'll be back soon. Ku'er. When he saw the man being dragged away by Shishang, Ku'er wiped non-existent sweat from his forehead. His Highness Shi-yin actually didn't resist. Since when had his daughter become so fierce? He had to interrogate her properly when she returned. Shishang stuffed Shi-yin into the car and drove away from the ancient castle. Shi-yin sat in the front passenger seat, looking at Shishang's profile with a subtle expression. He wondered if she was angry or angry. The vampire's roses were evergreen. The car sped through a field of roses, leaving a trail of red and green light behind it. Finally, the car came to a stop in the middle of a field of roses. Shang didn't say anything, nor did he get out of the car. He just looked ahead quietly. At first, Shi-in was still calm, but 10 minutes later, he began to feel a little restless. When she didn't say anything, it was even scarier than when she was yelling at him. Shi-in deliberated for a moment, then broke the silence. I was in a mess at the time. It's my fault for leaving without telling you. You touched her just now. Shi-in looked at her, somewhat dumbfounded. What? Shang expressionlessly took out a tissue from the car, grabbed his hand, and started wiping it with some force. Shi-in watched her actions and suddenly found it funny. Was she throwing a tantrum because of this? Shi-in looked at his fingertips, which were already red from the wiping. How long was she going to wipe? Shang suddenly let go of him and pounced on him. He hugged his neck and rubbed his face against it. Don't touch others. I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself. She was sick. She had always known this in her heart. That was why she restrained herself from falling in love with something. But she couldn't do that with Feng Ci. She wanted his entire body and soul to be hers. If anyone else touched him, she would want to kill them. Shi-in's heart skipped a beat. An indescribable feeling of discomfort welled up in him. I won't touch them. I won't touch them in the future. He had thought a lot during the time he was away. He admitted that he wanted to run away at the time, but during the time he was away, his mind was filled with images of her. When he heard that she was back, he went to find her without a second thought. But what he saw was a fake. He wouldn't forget her scent. He remembered that someone had once told him something. Some feelings couldn't be given up just because you wanted to. He hugged Shang and gently patted her back. Since he couldn't abandon her, he could only accept it. Yes, the female lead is sick. Chapter 285. Shang didn't ask why Shi-in had left without saying goodbye. Some things were better left unasked. No matter what had happened in the past, as long as he was here, it was enough. When Shi-in and Shang returned, there were people standing guard outside the castle. When they saw Shang return, they immediately went forward. Your Highness, the prince has asked you to stay with Prince Rue for the time being. The servant handed a few keys to Shang. Shang nodded. Can Godfather handle it? Ku'er was probably trying to get something out of that woman. Don't worry, there's nothing the prince can't handle. The servant's face was full of admiration. When she caught sight of Shi-in standing beside Shang, she gasped. Your Highness, the prince has asked you to call him when you're with Prince Rue. Okay, got it. You can go back now. The servant retreated to the side and respectfully sent Shang's car off. Rue had his own residence, but it wasn't a castle. It was a small villa. He didn't live here often either. Most of the time, Rue lived in the castle. Since Rue wasn't there, Shang opened the door and walked in. You want to stay with me? Shang asked with a half-smile as he watched Shi-in change his shoes. Shi-in's ears reddened, but his expression didn't change. Yes. Aren't you afraid that I'll do something to you? Shang moved closer to Shi-in, his tone flirtatious. Shi-in paused and looked up at him. He said seriously, I'll be happy if you're happy. If that could make her happy, he was willing. Shang stood up straight and pinched his face. You've learned how to flirt. Shi-in allowed her to pinch his face. He pursed his lips and smiled. His golden eyes were full of adoration. I'll call Godfather. You go up and pick a room. The one with the red door is Rue Yi's. Shi-in obediently went upstairs. Shang found the phone in the living room and called Ku'er's study. Ku'er seemed to be waiting for Shang's call. As soon as the call connected, the other side picked up. Damned girl, how did you and Lord Shi-in get to know each other? Shi Shang moved the microphone a little further away. That was so loud. Godfather, calm down. Shi Shang casually made up a story to fool Kuer. Kuer didn't know if he was truly fooled or if he was just pretending to be fooled. Are you with Lord Shi right now? I like him, so I will naturally be with him. Foster father won't break us up, right? If your adoptive father has the guts to separate the two of you, then that's fine. You little girl, you've found yourself a golden thigh. You have to bring some benefits to the family in the future. Shi Shang. Hey, this is not right. How could they talk about getting benefits so openly? No, she didn't even know who Shi was, so what benefit could she possibly get from him? There's no need to worry about the family. I'll think of a way to get some information out of them. You and Lord Shi should nurture your relationship and strive to have a child. Alright, I won't disturb you anymore. I'll tell Rui not to go back there. Beep 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 beep. Shi Shang raised the phone in a daze. Godfather, you're selling your daughter. That was unkind of him. But she liked it. Shi Shang happily hung up the phone. That night, the butler of the castle delivered new men's clothes and other necessities. It was obvious that he had prepared them for Shi. Good luck, Your Highness. Before the butler left, he didn't forget to cheer Shi Shang on. What kind of person was this? Shi Shang carried the clothes upstairs. Shi was reading a book, so she had no choice but to hang the clothes in the wardrobe herself. Can these clothes be worn? If not, I'll send someone outside to have them custom made. Shi put down the book, a little embarrassed. I was just torturing you back then. Shi Shang glanced at him, a serious expression on his face. You should wear your best. Shi. His wife's brain was wired differently from his. That woman from today. Shi walked over to Shi Shang and watched as she hung the clothes one by one in the wardrobe. She pretended to be you. Why did you let her jump around for so long? Based on her temper, she should have already taken that iron sword and hacked her to death. I was too bored. I wanted to see what she was up to. Shi Shang closed the wardrobe, a cold expression on his face. Shi suddenly reached out and touched her cheek. When he saw her expression soften, he covered her cheek with his hand. Here you can do whatever you want. No one will dare to stop you. Who are you? If even the grand princes were so careful, then wasn't he a king? But there was no king in the current bloodlings. Shi smiled and said softly, the current bloodlings are on the decline. The third generation has long since left the stage and is nowhere to be found. The ones that people fear the most are the sixth generation. The sixth generation were the current grand princes. I'm the fourth generation. The fourth generation was pretty impressive. Apart from the ancestors, the third generation was the most powerful. Not many people knew how powerful the fourth and fifth generations were. But looking at the current grand princes of the sixth generation, it was clear that these two generations were closer to the third generation, so they couldn't be weak. But, fourth generation? You're actually so old. Shi Shang looked at him with disdain. Why was she always an old man? Couldn't she get a little fresh meat? Shi. Was he old? Fine, he was indeed quite old compared to her. But age was basically useless to the bloodlings. That night, Shi Shang held her laptop and typed furiously. Shi sat beside her, looking at the words that kept jumping out. His expression went from puzzlement to a strange one. His face flushed red. Shi Shang typed the last word and closed her laptop. But when she turned around, she saw Shi with an awkward and red face. Shi Shang. She didn't tease him just now, did she? But he's so cute. She couldn't take it anymore. Pounce. Pounce. In the end, Shi Shang didn't manage to fall asleep. Rui came and pounded on the door. Didn't she say she wasn't going to let him in? Stop pounding, F*CK, Shi Shang threw a pillow at him. Shi lowered his head and chuckled. He reached out and rubbed her head. Shi Shang covered Shi with the blanket. After making sure nothing was exposed, she got off the bed and opened the door. As soon as the door opened, Ruei squeezed in, holding a broom that he'd gotten from God knows where. "Where's the adulterer? Little princess, don't be fooled by men. If you want to find a man, you have to let me see him first." Shang grabbed him by the collar, not letting him go to the bed. Instead, he pushed him out the door. "Little princess, how could you abandon me?" Ruei's expression changed like flipping through a book. His little princess didn't like him anymore even if she had a man. Ruei's gaze became even more aggrieved at this thought. He tiptoed and peeked inside. He wanted to see which shameless gigolo dared to seduce his little princess. Shang's head hurt. It was better to give him a beating. This guy wouldn't behave unless he was beaten. Of course, Shang wouldn't be so heartless as to kill him. He just gave him a few symbolic blows before locking him outside. But Ruei was fiddling with something outside. He was so loud that it made people want to kill him. Shang held the door and turned to look at Shi-in. She just wanted to sleep with her man. Why was it so difficult? Asterisk little fairy. You want to sleep with my son? Not so easy. Chapter 286. Hey, little princess, did you sleep well last night? Ruei had been waiting outside Shang's door since early in the morning. His handsome face was full of smiles, but his eyes kept darting inside. Shang. He'd been outside the whole night, and she hadn't slept at all. And now he had the nerve to ask? Where did his nerve come from? I'll have Godfather tie him up today. I'm so angry. Shi-in came out of his room and met Ruei's face. Ruei's expression immediately turned serious, and he looked Shi-in up and down as if he was appraising a product. "There's nothing special about him aside from his good looks," he commented. "Good looks are enough," Shang replied quietly. Ruei looked at him plaintively. "Little princess, you can't be so superficial." "I'm just that superficial," Shang said sincerely. Ruei reached out to grab Shang, but Shang immediately took a step back. "Just talk. Why do you have to touch me?" Ruei. "Little princess, you've changed. You used to let me hug you, but now you won't even let me hug you. My heart hurts." "What's so good about him?" Ruei complained. "He's good looking." Ruei felt like he'd been hurt 10,000 times over. And yet, the man his little princess was protecting looked so pleased with himself. He wanted to scratch him to death. How dare he steal his little princess? In the end, Ruei was dragged back by the butler. When he returned to the castle, Ruei's expression was cold, and he exuded the aura of an unapproachable bastard. "Big brother," Ling Xiang called out obediently when she saw Ruei return. Ruei glanced at her coldly, then snorted and went upstairs. Ling Xiang's heart was crumbling. What was going on with this family? Yesterday, Ku'er had only arranged for her to stay, and hadn't seen her. Ling Xiang had a bad premonition. Did they know something? Ling Xiang suppressed that bad feeling. Everyone in the castle treated her with great respect, so she shouldn't have been discovered. That woman was still trapped outside, and there was no way she could break her master's array. Just like that, Ling Xiang stayed in the castle. She rarely saw Ku'er, but she often saw Ruei. However, Ruei was in a terrible mood during this period of time. Ling Xiang spoke to him several times, but was either ignored or mocked. After Ling Xiang familiarized herself with the people in the castle, she began to wander around the castle. However, he didn't know that his actions were being observed. Ku'er tapped on the desk, deep in thought. "What do you think she's looking for?" The butler shook his head. "We don't have anything good here." "Did you find out who she came in with?" "She came here alone. I've checked all the people she came in contact with after coming in. There's no problem," the butler answered dutifully. "Humph." Ku'er sneered. "A fox will always show its tail." Under Kel's intentional guidance, Ling Xiang almost searched the entire castle. Obviously, she did not find what she wanted in the end. But the blood-breed banquet was about to begin, so she could only give up for now. The Feast of the Bloodbreeds was held in the largest ancient castle of the Bloodbreeds. This used to be the residence of the king, but after the king died, it was left empty. Occasionally, a family would hold a banquet here, and it became a public place. Ling Xiang and Ku Er arrived at the castle together. The entire castle was surrounded by blooming roses. Ling Xiang was dressed in a gorgeous gown, and she held Ku Er's arm as they walked into the castle. Even if it was fake, with such a face, it was hard not to notice it. This must be Her Highness Minai? It's been so many years since we last met. You've become so beautiful. Ling Xiang smiled and accurately called out the other party's name. The other party was clearly flattered. Along the way, Ling Xiang could name 80% of the people who came up to greet her. The cold glint in Ku Er's eyes grew stronger and stronger. Standing in the circle of vampire hunters, Ai Wei looked at the woman who was like the moon surrounded by stars and was slightly dazed. Her status in the Bloodbreeds was actually so high. Second uncle. What's her identity? Ai Wei tugged at the sleeve of the man beside her. One of the vampire hunters heard this and answered for the man. That's Prince Ku Er's adopted daughter. Her name is Minai. Adopted daughter? Isn't she his biological daughter? Perhaps it was because Ai Wei was a member of the younger generation and looked quite likable, but that person continued to explain, her family was wiped out in that great battle 100 years ago, leaving her all alone. I heard that Ku Er and her father had a life-and-death friendship, so he adopted her. Don't underestimate her just because she's a girl. She has an important vote in this election. All vampires had the right to vote in the election of the new king, but this was only the preliminary election. Out of all the candidates, whoever had the most votes from the Pure Blood clan would be crowned king. Therefore, the votes of purebred vampires were very precious. That's amazing. Ai Wei had learned quite a lot from following these people around, so when she heard this, she couldn't help but feel a little strange. At that moment, Ai Wei saw Zhualai enter with a beautiful woman. The two of them were very intimate, and although Zhualai was expressionless, it was obvious that he cared a lot about the woman. Ai Wei's face paled. She looked in Zhualai's direction in disbelief. The ones who came later are the big shots. Do you see that silver-haired man? His name is Rue Yi, Prince Ku Er's eldest son. The person beside her was still explaining to Ai Wei. But Ai Wei wasn't listening at all. She only watched as Zhualai and the beautiful woman wandered through the crowd. More and more vampires arrived, and the later ones came, the higher their status. Ai Wei felt out of place here. The atmosphere was so oppressive that it was hard for her to breathe. Shi Shang drove around the ancient castle. The election had just begun, and the real highlight would be at night, so she had no intention of going in. Just as she was about to leave, she suddenly saw the female lead running out of the castle. Holy shit, why is the female lead here? Ai Wei ran past a car, her face somewhat pale. Shi Shang immediately followed. Where are you going? The car suddenly changed directions. Shi-in looked up at her. To watch the show. Shi Shang followed the female lead at a distance. Ai Wei ran for a while before stopping. Seeing that there was no one around, she walked alone toward the sea of roses in the distance. This sea of roses seemed to connect with the sky, and the flowers here bloomed more brilliantly than anywhere else. Let's leave this place, Shi-in suddenly said. Shi Shang's hand, which was about to open the car door, paused. What's wrong? I don't like the smell here. Shi-in frowned, a little like a child throwing a tantrum. Shi Shang, isn't it just the same floral fragrance? What other smell is there? Crazy. Although that was what he thought, Shi Shang still drove away. Shi-in looked at the sea of flowers in the rearview mirror, which was getting farther and farther away. A gust of wind came from somewhere, causing the sea of flowers to sway. The sea of flowers began to roll like waves, covering the sky and covering the earth as it surged toward them. Shi-in stretched his hand out of the car. The rolling sea of flowers in the rearview mirror suddenly calmed down. Chapter 287. Why are you sticking your hand out? Shi Shang pulled Shi Yin's hand back into the car and closed the car window. Shi Yin gripped Shi Shang's hand and smiled at him. Shi Shang didn't pull his hand back. He continued driving with one hand and looked to the side. She saw it just now. That sea of flowers that had suddenly started rolling. But since Shi Yin didn't want to talk about it, she didn't intend to ask. It had nothing to do with her. Shi Shang parked the car in a deserted area. Shi Yin suddenly leaned over and kissed the corner of her lips. After a moment, he asked her in a low voice, "You clearly saw it. Why didn't you ask?" Shi Shang pushed against his chest and backed away. "Do you want to tell me?" "If you want to know, I'll tell you." Shi Yin looked at her seriously. Shi Shang blinked. His handsome face was reflected in her eyes. Shi Yin's eyes darkened, and he kissed her again. When Shi Yin finally let go of Shi Shang's face was a bit red. When did this guy become so good at kissing? She almost couldn't handle it. Many bloodlings have died in that place. Shi Yin's voice was very soft. If it weren't for the fact that the car was very quiet, Shi Shang probably wouldn't have heard him. She turned to look at Shi Yin. Shi Yin was looking at her with a faint smile on his lips. There was no warmth in that smile. It was oddly cold. "I killed them." Shi Yin's lips moved. Shi Shang stared at Shi Yin, anger rising in his heart. He was actually testing her. This idiot. Shi Shang took a few deep breaths to suppress his anger. He tugged at his lips. "I don't care what you've done or what you want to do. Even if you want to kill the entire bloodlings right now, I'll still stand by your side. Do you understand?" Shi Yin's tightly clenched fists slowly relaxed, and a smile slowly appeared on his face. He felt around his wrist for a moment, and Shi Shang saw a red pendant appear in his hand. He took Shi Shang's wrist and put it on for her. This is, if she remembered correctly, she had seen it in Mi Nai's painting before. Was that child him? Where did Mi Nai get that painting from? It's just an ordinary bracelet, but it's something passed down in my family. It represents your identity, Shi Yin explained in a low voice. My identity as Shi Yin's wife. Shi Yin raised his head and planted a gentle kiss on the corner of her lips. This is your own choice, Mi Nai. There's no turning back for you. Shi Shang sneered, pinched his face, and said viciously, "Who wants to go back? I wish we could live and die together." Shi Yin seemed to be pleased. To be my, Shi Yin's woman, you must have this kind of awareness. If I live, you can't die. If I die, you can't live either. Shi Shang raised his eyebrows. Compared to him, Shi Shang felt that he was more selfish. Every man for himself, not to mention that she liked him. It didn't matter now. She would find him eventually. But this guy didn't even propose to her, so how could they be married just like that? Wishful thinking. The bracelet would disappear when it was on Shi Yin's wrist, but it wouldn't when it was on Shi Shang's wrist. Shi Shang leaned against the driver's seat and swung his wrist, unable to take his eyes off the sparkling pendant. Shi Yin looked at her childish behavior with amusement. That painting. Shi Shang put down his hand and turned around, a hesitant expression on his face. My mother painted it, Shi Yin answered naturally. That's only half of it. There's still the other half. I'll take you to see it when I have time. She lifted Shi Shang from the driver's seat and placed him on her lap. Her fingertips brushed against the red string on his wrist, and she rested her chin on his shoulder. I've never seen this painting in its entirety. My mother said that when I find the other half of it someday, that person will bring me hope. But there's a huge age gap between us. Shi Shang was dumbfounded. What era was Shi Yin's mother from? How could she be so sure that the painting would end up in a girl's hands? What if it ended up in a man's hands? Shi Yin held Shi Shang's hand and didn't say anything else. The most important thing was that they had met, right? The two of them chatted in the car until night fell. Only then did Shi Shang remember that he still had work to do. Beauty misleads. Shi Shang rubbed Shi Yin's head. Shi Yin's hair stood on end, making him look very adorable. Shi Shang almost couldn't resist doing him in the car. Beauty misleads. If this was in ancient times, she would definitely be a fatuous ruler. The ancient castle was brightly lit at night, and the fragrance of roses filled the air. Shi Shang was still wearing the same black dress as before. He held onto Shi Yin's arm as they walked into the castle. "Please show me your invitation." The attendant standing guard outside the castle was a little puzzled. Why were they so late? But the two of them were really good-looking. When they stood together, it was as if they were a match made in heaven. The woman looked a little familiar. Shi Shang couldn't use the invitation in his hand, so she looked at Shi Yin. "Shi Yin, why are you looking at me? I don't have an invitation." "Fine, it's not that I don't have one. I just threw it away." "Shi Shang, what happened to being pretentious? As a great villain, shouldn't you be showing your face?" Shi Yin felt very wronged. Their levels were too low, so they didn't recognize him. The two of them communicated silently with their eyes. The attendant beside them looked at them strangely. Were they trying to sneak into the banquet? Shi Shang was irritated. What the hell were they pretending to be pretentious for? They couldn't even get in. Shi Shang took out her phone and asked Rui to come out and pick her up. Rui had probably just come out from a pile of women. He was full of the fragrance of roses, and his clothes were still twisted from being pulled. "Little princess, why are you blocked outside again?" Rui went forward to give Shi Shang a bear hug. Shi Shang hurriedly hid behind Shi Yin. When Rui was about a palm's width away from Shi Yin, he abruptly stopped, and his expression changed. He slowly put down his arms and bowed like an aristocrat. "Lord Shi Yin." But in his heart, he kept complaining. Lord Shi Yin? He couldn't even get through the door. His little princess would only suffer if she followed him. No, he had to quickly correct his little princess's worldview and find a good man. Shi Yin's lips curled up slightly. "Brother-in-law, there's no need to be so polite." What the hell? What kind of a dress was brother-in-law? Rui looked up at Shi Shang. Shi Shang's eyes curved into crescents as he raised his wrist and waved it. When Rui saw the thing on Shi Shang's wrist, his expression changed again. He couldn't help but look at Shi Yin a little more carefully. He tugged at his clothes and straightened his posture. With a straight face, he said seriously, "Call me brother-in-law a few more times." "Shi Shang, why aren't you following the script?" Shi Yin was also a little speechless by Rui's reaction, but he still called her a few times. After all, they were her family. Even though they weren't blood relatives, she still seemed to like them quite a bit. Shi Shang's strange gaze drifted toward Shi Yin. This great villain was very down-to-earth. "Fine, fine. Don't think that I'll accept you just because you called me that. Let me tell you, if my little princess suffers even the slightest bit of injustice, I'll skin you alive." Rui led the two of them inside. They left behind a group of dumbfounded attendants. Was that Her Highness Mi Nai just now? Didn't Her Highness Mi Nai arrive a long time ago? When did she leave? Why didn't they see her? Also, when did Her Highness Mi Nai have a partner? Shi Shang. My heart hurts when I can't sleep with my partner. I need votes to comfort myself. P.S. What do you want to see in the next plane? Chapter 288. Shi Shang didn't disturb the others when he entered, merely waiting quietly in a corner with Shi Yin. Because most of her body was blocked by Shi Yin, no one noticed that she looked exactly the same as the dazzling Ling Xiang. Shi Shang's quiet demeanor made Shi Yin feel very strange. This didn't fit her personality at all. Shi Yin secretly tightened his grip on Shi Shang's hand. The rich fragrance of roses wafted through the entire hall. Shi Shang's gaze landed on the rectangular dining table at the side of the hall. There were many beautiful cups on it, each filled with a bright red liquid. That was where the rose fragrance came from. Shi Yin seemed to have noticed her gaze and pulled her into his embrace. He explained in a low voice, That's rice wine. It can make you feel full, but it's addictive. The one you gave me? Sorry. Sheen didn't hide it. Fortunately, he only gave her 1 cup. Shang didn't react, looking away after a brief glance. The vampire hunters and vampires were clearly divided into camps, each occupying a side of the hall. Of course, some of the vampire hunters and vampires interacted with each other, but their interactions were limited to greeting each other. Shang saw Du Ju among the vampire hunters. Du Ju's expression didn't look too good, and he kept saying something to the person beside him. The person beside him didn't seem to agree, and the more Du Ju spoke, the more agitated he became. Suddenly, he smashed the wine glass in his hand. The sound of glass shattering caused the entire hall to fall silent. Everyone turned to look in his direction. If you won't speak, then I will. This matter doesn't concern us humans, but vampires as well. Du Ju's powerful voice reverberated through the silent hall. Du Ju! The elder who had been talking to Du Ju yelled. What does Mr. Du want to say? Kuer walked over from the vampire's side and stood in the middle, looking at Du Ju inquisitively. Du Ju, don't speak nonsense. The elder wanted to pull Du Ju back, but Du Ju pushed him away. He adjusted his glasses and walked forward to stand in front of Kuer. Does Mr. Kuer know that your adopted daughter has violated the treaty in the human world and killed people at will? Kuer's eyes narrowed as he looked at Ling Xiang. Ling Xiang seemed to be shocked by this news as well, her expression somewhat dazed. Everyone's gazes turned to Ling Xiang. Violating the first clause of the treaty is punishable by death. Why would Her Highness Mi Nai kill someone? Why would Her Highness Mi Nai violate the treaty? Perhaps they're just looking for trouble. I think so too. Vampire hunters and us are natural enemies. They must be framing us. Kerr ignored the discussions and calmly asked, Mr. Dean, do you have any evidence? Du Ju took out his phone and showed Kuer the video. The first video was a side profile, but that face was too iconic. Even if it was just a side profile, it would not be mistaken. The person in the video was biting the neck of a human and drinking his blood. The second video was when the school was besieged. The cameraman didn't manage to capture the scene where Shang and Ling Xiang appeared at the same time. He only managed to capture the scene where Ling Xiang sucked the blood and revealed her face. This is the evidence. Du Ju raised his voice, his eyes shining brightly. I wonder how Prince Kuer will explain this. Rue Yi stood behind Kuer, the expression on his face changing unpredictably. His little princess would not eat so roughly. It must be that impostor. However, that impostor was using his little princess's name. If this matter wasn't handled well, in the end, the one who would be criticized would still be the little princess. Kuer, let your girl explain, one of the princes spoke up, his gaze on the vampire hunters extremely unfriendly. Although they had internal strife, at a time like this, they naturally had to side with their own people. Kuer looked at Ling Xiang. Ling Xiang lifted the hem of her dress and walked to Kuer's side, glancing at Du Ju first. Du Ju's sharp gaze caused her to shrink back in fear. She explained in a small voice, Godfather, I didn't. They're slandering me. Mean-eye girl, you have to show evidence. A rather ugly man among the princes stepped forward. He wasn't exactly ugly, but there was a scar on his face that affected his looks. His gaze was as sharp as a knife as he stared at Ling Xiang, the pressure pressing down on her. Fei Qi. Kuer scolded in a low voice. The man called Fei Qi snorted. Kuer, why are you being so loud? Did you do something shameful? If your goddaughter didn't do anything wrong, we vampires naturally wouldn't watch her be slandered. But if she violated the agreement, we can't cover it up either. Otherwise, what's the point of the agreement established 100 years ago? Kuer's gaze on Fei Qi immediately turned subtle. The other princes remained silent, each with their own ideas. If your Highness Mi Nai can produce evidence to prove her innocence, then this matter is our fault. We will apologize to your Highness Mi Nai. Seeing that the situation had developed to this point, the elder also stepped forward to speak up. I really didn't, Ling Xiang defended herself, her expression anxious. Godfather, you have to believe me. Mean-eye girl, this isn't something you can just say. You have to have evidence. Everyone present probably knew what was going on from Fei Qi's expression of kicking someone while they were down. He was using the vampire hunters to cause trouble. Among the princes, Fei Qi and Ku Er were the strongest. The two of them had been competing in secret for many years. Fei Qi naturally wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. Fei Qi, do you know what you're doing? Ku Er's expression turned completely cold. He was actually helping an outsider. I'm doing this for the sake of the vampire race's stability. No one wants to have someone who breaks the agreement and affects the peace, right? Fei Qi continued, we're princes. We can't cover up the wrongdoer just because she's a relative, can we? Fei Qi was forcing Ku Er to make a decision. Bending the law in front of the vampire hunters would definitely incur their displeasure. Godfather, I really didn't do it. Ling Xiang kept insisting that she hadn't done it, but she didn't provide any evidence. Shi Sheng watched for a while before breaking into a grin. He came to a conclusion. She's trying to start a war. As for her motive, according to Ku Er, she was looking for something, but couldn't find it. She was probably trying to take advantage of the chaos to find it. Shi Sheng cupped his chin as he watched the argument escalate into a verbal battle. In the end, someone was so infuriated that he was about to attack. During this time, Ling Xiang's role was to insist that she hadn't done it, but she didn't provide any evidence or question the contents of the video. This allowed anyone with a slightly more vivid imagination to come up with a plot in a matter of minutes. Fei Qi, on the other hand, was a little more subtle. He was constantly infuriating Ku Er, as if he wanted to join forces with the vampire hunters to drag Ku Er down. It was such a big show, but the master behind the impostor hadn't revealed a single trace of himself. He had really put in a lot of effort. Shi Sheng's lips curled into a cold smile. At some point, his iron sword had already appeared in his hand. After watching them sing for so long, it was time for her to put on a show and make them turn over a new leaf. It's the end of the month. Begging for monthly votes. I can't be short on recommendation votes either. Chapter 289. Just as they were about to attack, a loud crash came from the corner. The glass fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Everyone instinctively looked in that direction. Seeing the person standing there clearly, the group of people was instantly dumbfounded. Why were there two Minai? Shi Sheng jumped over the broken glass and walked straight to the center of the room. Her black dress swayed, and the red roses on it swayed. She held an iron sword in her hand, and her murderous aura was terrifying to look at. The people in her way instinctively moved aside. When Ling Xiang saw Shi Sheng, her expression turned ugly. Why was she here? Shouldn't she be trapped in Master's array? Why was she here? What's with all the commotion? Are you all here to attack me? Shi Sheng didn't even look at Ling Xiang. Instead, she turned to look at Du Ju. Her lips tugged into a sinister smile. Mr. Du, you've gotten even bolder. Du Ju had already learned from his own people that there were two identical Minai. This was also why the old man had stopped him earlier. Du Ju was almost certain that this sword-wielding woman was the Minai who had once stood by Shi Yin's side. There was probably no one else who could replicate that arrogant gaze. Who are you? Fei Qi demanded harshly. Are you blind? Can't you recognize me? Do you want to see an ophthalmologist? Shi Sheng's cold gaze drifted toward Fei Qi. Fei Qi. This little brat sure is arrogant. How dare he talk to me like that? Ku Er. Arguing with a junior was beneath his status, so Fei Qi yelled at Ku Er. This was his adopted daughter, so he should give her an explanation. What are you yelling at? Shi Sheng suddenly swung her sword. It didn't look like she used much strength, as if she was just casually swinging her sword. However, a formless energy was sent out by the sword and swept towards Fei Qi. Fei Qi reacted extremely quickly and dodged, but the item behind him was smashed into pieces. Everyone who had escaped death stared in shock at the iron sword in Shishang's hand. This ordinary-looking iron sword was actually this powerful? It was too scary. Does it feel good to impersonate me? Shishang looked at Ling Xiang after Fei Qi stopped talking. Come, let's talk about life. Ling Xiang panicked. Her body involuntarily retreated as she glanced around. She must have been discovered long ago, which was why this family treated her so coldly. Good sister, where do you think you're going? Ling Xiang felt a chill run down her spine. Rui and 2 other men had blocked her path of retreat. Rui quickly grabbed her by the neck. You even dare to impersonate my family's little princess. Who gave you the guts? Woo woo. As expected, they all knew. But he still played her like a monkey. Kerr, what's going on? The audience, who were still in a daze, also wanted to know. Wasn't this saying that Minai had violated the treaty? How could there be a second Minai? Kuer cleared his throat. This woman is impersonating Minai, but I don't know what her motives are, so I let her stay. Kuer's voice was neither fast nor slow, and his explanation was easy to understand. It didn't take long for everyone present to understand. Who killed that person? Whether it was the fake Minai or the real Minai, they were both vampires. I dare swear on my title as a prince that Minai has nothing to do with this matter. Kuer's expression was solemn. To swear on one's title as a prince was akin to swearing a deadly oath. Most of the vampires believed him. Fei Qi, however, smirked. That's just your side of the story. Who knows which one is real and which one is fake? Who's the one who violated the treaty? Fei Qi, why are you always targeting me? A dangerous glint appeared in Kuer's eyes. Because he's a traitor, Shishang interjected. Little girl, what nonsense are you spouting? Fei Qi was instantly enraged. Shishang seemed to be frightened and retreated a few steps. I'm just saying. Why are you so agitated? Could it be that he's really a traitor? Nonsense. Fei Qi roared, then calmed down. I'm a vampire prince. I have status, and everything. Why would I want to be a traitor? Who knows, maybe you want to be a king. Kuer looked at Shishang, who seemed to be spouting nonsense. For some reason, he suddenly believed her words. Fei Qi had always been fighting for power with him, and now he was helping the vampire hunters. But he didn't dare to speak without evidence. Stop changing the subject. We're talking about you and this woman. Which one of you is the real Minai, and which one is the murderer? Fei Qi roared in exasperation. Idiot! Who are you scolding? I'm scolding you. Fei Qi's blood pressure soared. If the other princes hadn't held him back, he would have attacked already. Cough cough. Prince Kuer, we don't want to know about your internal grudges. The elder among the vampire hunters coughed and drew attention to himself. Right now, we just want to know who the real Minai is. A bunch of idiots. Shishang began to attack indiscriminately. Kuer. Was his daughter scolding him as well? Little girl, don't be so arrogant. The elder's expression darkened. Shishang stabbed the iron sword into the ground. The floor, made of some unknown material, immediately cracked open, and the iron sword stuck firmly in the crack. The surrounding people once again revealed a horrified expression and took a few steps back one after another. What does it have to do with you whether I'm arrogant or not? Can you kill me? Shishang attacked the elder without holding back. Elder, Du Ju had experienced being angered by Shishang before. He quickly supported the elder and whispered something into his ear. Although he didn't see Shi-In, who knew if that person was here? Sure enough, the elder calmed down. If she really had that person backing her up, she did have the right to be arrogant. Even if she really did kill someone, as long as that person spoke, they couldn't do anything to her. Shishang let go of the iron sword. With a flip of her wrist, a ring appeared in her fair palm. She slipped the ring onto her index finger. Seeing the ring, the vampires all lowered their heads. Shi Shang raised his hand high and turned in a circle. Fei Qi's expression was extremely ugly. His Adam's apple bobbed a few times, but in the end, he didn't say a word. Since Her Highness Mi Nai's identity has been confirmed, then this impostor. The vampire peacemaker spoke up again. How can you be so sure that she's the real Mi Nai? Some of the vampire hunters were unconvinced. It was just a ring. What if someone stole it? The peacemaker looked at the person who asked the question like he was an idiot, but still explained, Her Highness Mi Nai is a purebred vampire. Her ring was passed down in her family, so only she can wear it. If anyone else tries to wear it, only death awaits them. The elder coughed, and those who wanted to cause trouble immediately quieted down. Shi Shang put the ring away, drew his sword, and walked towards Ling Xiang, who was being held by Rue Yi. What do you want? Ling Xiang's face was pale, but the bright red lipstick on her lips made her look like a bloody maw. I'll give you two choices. Shi Shang's eyes curved into crescents. Asterisk little fairy. I'll give you two choices. Vote or have sex. It's the end of the month, and the monthly tickets are about to expire. Give them all to me, sob sob sob. Chapter 290. Just as Ling Xiang thought Shi Shang was going to ask her who her master was, she heard her say, Do you want to die horizontally or vertically? Ling Xiang. Aren't you going to ask who my master is? The people around them also had strange looks on their faces. Shouldn't she be asking why she was impersonating her? I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. Ling Xiang's entire body began to tremble. She chose not to die. Master, there's a monster here. Save me. 3. Shi Shang smiled as he raised his hand. The cold glint of his sword pierced Ling Xiang's heart with lightning speed. Ling Xiang's eyes widened. Didn't you say 3 seconds? Did you eat 1 or 2? Why does it hurt so much? Bloodlings were immortal. Normal things couldn't kill her. But why did she feel like she was only a step away from death? So cold, Du Ju only reacted after Ling Xiang's body turned to ash. No one had expected her to act so suddenly. Mi Nai, why did you kill her? She's impersonating you, and you haven't even figured out her motive. Why are you in such a hurry to kill her? Are you feeling guilty? Shi Shang leisurely wiped the blood off his iron sword. Guilty of what? Du Ju. Who the hell knows what you're guilty of? Besides, I've already guessed her motive. Why can't I kill her? Shi Shang turned to look at Du Ju. Mr. Du, do you want to die too? I don't mind sending you on your way. Du Ju. What motive does she have? Fei Qi looked at Shi Shang with cold eyes. This little girl was so small back then. Who would have thought that after so many years, she would grow to this extent? Why should I tell you, traitor? Mi Nai, you have to be responsible for your words. You keep saying that I'm a traitor, but what proof do you have? Fei Qi's eyes were about to spit fire. I have freedom of speech. If I want to say it, I'll say it. If you don't like it, just hold it in. Ku'er. His daughter seemed to be a bit too arrogant. Rue Yi. The little princess was a grandmaster at drawing hatred. Fei Qi was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Ku'er, look at the daughter you've brought up. She's indeed a mother who didn't teach her. Fei Qi. Ku'er's face was dark. Don't forget how you managed to keep your life back then. Fitch was suddenly speechless. All right, this matter ends here. Ke's intimidating gaze swept across the surroundings. Du Ju and the old man glanced at each other, but they didn't pursue the matter any further. Ku'er ordered people to rearrange the venue, and the crowd dispersed. Shi Shang and Ku'er stood together. From time to time, they would glance at her. Little princess, why did you say that old man Fei Qi is a mole? Rue asked the Shi Shang curiously. Because he looks like a mole, Shi Shang said with a straight face. Rue Yi. This joke wasn't funny at all. Stinky girl, Don't try to fool your brother. Do you know something? Shi Shang glanced in Fei Qi's direction. Fei Qi was also looking at her. Shi Shang gave him a provocative look, causing Fei Qi to turn his head away in anger. Shi Shang turned back and said casually, I heard him talking to a vampire hunter. Their conversation was a little strange. Shi Shang pointed at a man not far away. That's him. Someone from the AI family. Ku'er frowned. The AI family? AI Wei's family? The plot didn't mention that AI Wei's family was a vampire hunter family. Fine, the plot didn't mention this vampire banquet at all. AI Wei had never been here, so the plot didn't mention AI Wei's family. Her blood was so special, so she definitely wasn't from an ordinary family. What did they talk about? Ku'er retracted his gaze, his expression grave. It's all nonsense. Ku'er's mouth twitched. Nonsense. How do you know he's a mole? Godfather. Forget it. This was her godfather, so she shouldn't insult him. Have you ever seen Fei Qi talk nonsense with anyone? Fei Qi was a person with a high status. Even when speaking to the princes, he acted like he was a cut above them. How could he possibly lower himself to talk to a vampire hunter? And that vampire hunter didn't even look like a corps member. Then didn't you alert him just now? Rui was shocked. What does that have to do with me? Shi Shang blinked innocently. I'm not responsible for stopping him from rebelling. Ku'er. Why do I suddenly feel like I've been abandoned? Rui. It's not your imagination, it is. When did the little princess's personality become like this? It must be that Shi who led his little princess astray. Godfather, don't worry. If Fei Qi dares to touch you, I'll send him down to find someone to play mahjong with. Although she didn't care what Fei Qi wanted to do, she would protect Ku'er and Rui. Ku'er's face darkened. When did his daughter become so arrogant? He didn't even dare to say something like sending Fei Qi down to find someone to play mahjong with. But she said it as casually as if she was eating something today. Then you should know who sent someone to impersonate you. I don't know. I'm not a god, how would I know? I don't know how you killed her. Rui's expression changed. He thought she knew who the mastermind was, which was why he didn't stop her. Shi Shang looked at the two of them with an enigmatic expression. Godfather, strength proves everything. They wanted to scheme against her? Did they think she was as easy to scheme against as those idiots on the streets? Ku'er and Rui only had one thought in their minds right now. They really wanted to beat her up. But one couldn't bear to do it, while the other didn't dare. The rest of the banquet went smoothly. The election would be held the next day, so the banquet ended at 3 in the morning. Shi Shang and Shi left through a side door where there weren't many people. Outside, the stars shone resplendently and covered the ground with silver frost. Hungry? Shi held her hand and asked in a low voice. Shi Shang rubbed his stomach. After drinking Shi Yin's blood last time, he hadn't felt hungry for a long time. But now that Shi asked, she suddenly felt a little hungry. A little. Wait for us. Minai. Someone called out to her from behind, interrupting Shi. Zualai caught up from behind. He'd seen Shi in school before, but thought he was too good-looking. He didn't know that Shi was also a vampire, so he couldn't help but look at him with an inquisitive gaze. Something's up. Why did the male lead call for her instead of the female lead? Zualai retracted his gaze from Shi, his expression turning serious. You offended Fei Qi today. Be careful. Perhaps afraid that Shi Shang would misunderstand, Zualai quickly explained, Fei Qi is a very vengeful person. You also have an election ballot, so be careful. Shi Shang was dumbfounded. BBB, don't understand the male lead's thoughts at all. What's the meaning of him suddenly showing goodwill to me, BBB? She could understand why he wanted to rope her in before, but now? She'd already expressed that she wouldn't support him, so why was the male lead still trying to get close to her? With me here, she'll be fine. A cold smile appeared on Shi Yin's face. Zhuo Lai's expression froze for a moment. This man's hostility. Shi Yin. You want to steal my wife? Dream on. Chapter 291. After Zhuo Lai left, Shisheng immediately asked Shi Yin, "What did you want to say just now?" Shi Yin's ears reddened and his gaze wandered. "Let's talk when we get back." No matter how Shisheng asked, Shi Yin didn't answer. Shisheng drove back to the villa listlessly. The night breeze carried a strong floral scent. It blew in through the car window and into Shisheng's face. The entire car was filled with that strong fragrance. Shisheng controlled the steering wheel with one hand and propped up his chin with the other. No one knew what he was thinking. "Someone's following us," Shi Yin suddenly said. Shisheng blinked, lowered his hand, and looked in the rear-view mirror. A car was parked in the distance on the swaying path. The driver probably didn't want to startle them, so he didn't turn on the headlights. Just then, the car behind them suddenly sped up, looking like it was about to crash into them. Black shadows flashed in the surrounding flowers. "Someone's delivering their heads to us." Shisheng stopped the car and turned to Shi Yin. "Get off the bus. Don't spill any blood." Shi Yin. Why did that sound so wrong? The two of them quickly got out of the car and ran in opposite directions. In the next second, the car behind them crashed into their car. With a loud bang, both cars exploded at the same time. Sparks flew everywhere, illuminating the surroundings. Several black shadows dashed toward Shisheng at the same time. Shisheng swung his iron sword. The fastest black shadow fell straight to the ground. The black shadows clearly paused for a moment. Shisheng wasn't stupid enough to wait for them to react. His iron sword was like the Grim Reaper's scythe, swiftly reaping the heads of the black shadows. The last black shadow fell and turned into ashes. Bloodlings. This bunch of idiots. They want to deal with me with so few people? They're looking down on me too much. Shisheng jumped out of the rose bushes and onto the road. Shi Yin stood in a place where the light of the fire couldn't reach, his expression indifferent as he looked at the burning car. "Looks like we'll have to walk back," Shisheng's voice came from beside him. He tilted his head slightly, allowing Shisheng to catch a glimpse of the golden light that flashed through his eyes. It was brilliant and colorful. He took Shisheng's hand and said, "I'll give you a present tomorrow." "What gift?" "I want you more. Just pack yourself up and give it to me. Girls should be reserved. Being reserved won't feed me. Besides, what's wrong with me wanting my own man?" Shi Yin chuckled softly. The two of them walked further and further away, finally disappearing into the darkness. When they returned to the villa, Shi Yin went to the bathroom to take a shower while Shisheng tapped away on his laptop. By the time Shi Yin came out, Shisheng had already uploaded the latest chapter. Don't ask her where the vampires got the net. It would be strange if the vampires didn't even have an internet connection. Go take a shower. Shi Yin took out a set of pajamas from the closet and handed it to Shisheng. Shisheng closed his laptop and caressed Shi Yin's hand before taking his clothes to take a shower. Shi Yin caressed the back of his hand and lowered his head with a smile. He lifted the blanket and lay down. When Shisheng came out, Shi Yin seemed to have fallen asleep. Shisheng sighed. Her life was so hard. She quietly climbed into bed. As soon as she lay down, Shi Yin leaned over and pressed his slightly cool body against hers. Shisheng caressed him. "Damn, he's not wearing any clothes. It feels good. Let's touch him a little more." She was just about to move her hand down when Shi Yin suddenly flipped over and pressed her under his body, kissing her without warning. How could Shisheng hold back when Shi Yin suddenly took the initiative? Satisfied, he devoured him clean. It was probably the first time, so Shi Yin seemed a little unfamiliar and nervous. However, he got much better after that. The night was quiet, and the ground was covered in silver dust. When Shi Yin woke up the next day, it was almost noon. He propped himself up and sat up. There was no one beside him, and he was already dressed. Shi Yin's face heated up when he thought about what happened last night. He sat for a while and was about to get out of bed when Shi Shang came in. "You're awake. I thought you were going to sleep until the afternoon." Shi Shang looked pleased with himself. "Do you want to do it again, young man?" Shi Yin. Was there any point in teasing him? Shi Shang looked at Shi Yin sitting on the bed in a daze. His hair was messy, and he looked so adorable. "I really want to hide you." Shi Shang walked over and pounced on him, tormenting him for a while. Shi Yin played along with her. When she was done, he hugged her and lay down on the bed. He had never felt this way before. When he woke up in the morning, there was someone to play with. His side was no longer lonely. He could see someone standing beside him at any time, just within reach. The election for the new king didn't take place as scheduled. It was brought forward. Shi Shang received a call from Rue Yi and rushed to the castle with Shi Yin. This time, no one dared to stop her. She entered without a hitch. "Little princess." Rue Yi appeared out of nowhere. Her expression changed. "You." The little princess had Shi Yin's scent on her. When a vampire confirmed a mate, they would infuse their mate with their scent. It was like a symbol, a mark. Rue Yi glared at Shi Yin. Shi Yin pursed his lips and smiled. Rue Yi harumphed and turned to Shi Shang. "Something happened. Let's go to father first." After hearing their story, Shi Shang finally understood what had happened. Last night, a sea of roses not far from the castle had been set ablaze. The entire area had turned into a sea of fire. As a result, a new king was born. There were records of this among the vampires. Rising from the ashes, a new king descends, bringing light and a new life. This was a prophecy. The situation for the vampires had been bad these past few years. So many of them believed in this prophecy. They hoped that a new king would bring them new life and hope. But someone really did walk out of the fire. The vampires who believed in this prophecy recognized the new king on the spot. Tonight's election became a coronation ceremony for the new king. Shi Shang thought of the female lead he had seen yesterday. He was probably going to spill some blood again. "Little princess, why do you think that old man Fei Qi recognized her so quickly? He has his eyes on the throne." This was what Rue Yi couldn't figure out. If Fei Qi hadn't taken the lead, there probably wouldn't have been so many vampires who recognized this strange new king. Maybe she's the one he's been waiting for all this time. Shi Shang's lips curled up in an irresponsible manner. Rue Yi frowned. "Little princess, what do you mean?" Shi Shang shrugged. "It's just a guess." This was all based on one's imagination. She had written so many melodramatic stories. It was easy to guess how the plot would develop. But she didn't plan to tell Rue Yi. After all, she was just shooting her mouth off. She had no proof. Rue Yi looked at Shi Shang suspiciously. Shi Shang gave him a helpless expression. There were many more vampires than yesterday. Even the vampire hunters had arrived. Fei Qi arrived late with his men. He walked to the front of the stage. "Everyone quiet down." Once everyone had quieted down, Fei Qi continued, "I'm sure you've all heard the reason why I invited everyone here in advance." "Yes, that's right. The new king has been born. She came according to the prophecy and is destined to be the king. If you have any questions, you can ask them later. Now, let us welcome our new king." Chapter 292. Her Majesty Ai Wei. As Fei Qi spoke, the lights in the castle dimmed, leaving only the main entrance and the red-carpeted path leading to the stage. Under the confused, curious, and complicated gazes of the crowd, a petite figure appeared at the main entrance. She was dressed in an intricate gown with attendants following behind her. The light shone on her, making her look magnificent. Ai Wei looked a little nervous, walking very slowly. Shi Shang stood at the front. Her simple black gown made her stand out among the luxurious gowns. Ai Wei spotted her immediately. Probably because she didn't want to embarrass herself in front of Shang, she puffed out her chest and followed the light to the stage. When she passed by Shang, she purposely slowed down her pace. Just yesterday, when AI Wei found out about AI Wei's noble status, she'd felt an indescribable feeling. But today, AI Wei's status was higher than hers. This was the so-called, the river flows east for 30 years, then the river flows west for 30 years. Shang expressionlessly watched as AI Wei proudly walked past her. I knew it was her. The female lead is a mystical creature who has fortuitous encounters no matter where she goes. What are you so proud of? Even I would be scared if I were to be hung up. The other vampires were in a flurry of discussion. Some acknowledged her status, while others objected. AI Wei became nervous again when she heard the commotion below. She'd never been in such a big situation before. Fortunately, Fei Qi was there to help her, so she didn't have stage fright. Now that the new queen has been appointed, according to the rules, the authority in the hands of the various princes should be redistributed to Her Majesty. Fei Qi's gaze intentionally swept towards Ku'er. Ku'er looked at him coldly. How long has Fei Qi been planning this? He was the first to support the new queen. The new queen, who didn't know anything, would naturally listen to him. When the time came, all the authority would be in Fei Qi's hands. The new queen would be nothing more than a puppet. The true ruler would still be Fei Qi. The moment he said this, the crowd exploded. They'd held power for 100 years. How could they accept it if they suddenly had to hand it over? There were also some who had the same thoughts as Ku'er. But now, most of them believed that this young queen would bring them a new lease of life. If they rashly objected, they'd definitely be attacked by these people. The wise vampires chose to keep their mouths shut. When AI Wei saw that a fight was about to break out below, she subconsciously glanced at Fei Qi. Don't worry, Your Majesty. You're now the ruler of the blood race. They won't dare to disobey you. Fei Qi comforted AI Wei. Tell them that you will distribute the rights fairly and that you still need their support. Will they really listen to me? How could she not be nervous when she was suddenly promoted from an ordinary person to a vampire king? I will. Fitch nodded seriously. AI Wei glanced at the people below. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught sight of Zuolai, who was standing in the middle of the crowd, silently watching her. Her heart suddenly began to thump. She was now the queen of the blood kindred. She was the same as Zuolai. Did that mean that she could be with him? But not long ago, she had hated the vampires so much, but now, she had become the queen of the vampires. Now that things had come to this, she had no way out. She could only brace herself and move forward. AI Wei took a deep breath. He couldn't bring himself to say it. AI Wei tugged at her skirt. What should I do? I can't bring myself to say it. Fei Qi could probably tell that AI Wei was nervous. Quiet. What's with all the commotion? Due to Fei Qi's status, the crowd immediately quieted down. AI Wei grew increasingly nervous as more and more people watched her. She was even worse off than the noisy crowd from before. Fei Qi was a little exasperated. He lowered his voice and reminded her, Your Majesty, say something. I can't say anything. Just as AI Wei was about to cry, she suddenly saw the mocking smile on Shang's face. There was probably a kind of motivation called unwillingness to admit defeat and jealousy. She clenched her teeth. I know everyone is doubting me, but I didn't want this to happen. I'm just an ordinary university student. I was completely unprepared for this to happen. Fei Qi's expression changed. What nonsense is this girl spouting? Just as he was about to tell her to shut up, her tone changed. But since it's already become a reality, I won't run away from it. I'll study hard. I hope everyone can support me. Fei Qi sighed in relief. Although she hadn't said it very well, it could still be considered sincere. If she had said it too well, it would have sounded more like a rehearsal. It would have raised suspicions. AI Wei's down-to-earth speech unexpectedly gained a lot of support. The princes who sided with Fei Qi directly handed over their authority. If there was a first, there would be a second. The new king had Fei Qi's support. None of them had as much authority as Fei Qi, not to mention the fact that the new king also had the title of having a prophecy come true. In the end, only Ku-Er was left among the princes. Godfather, if you don't want to hand it over, then so be it. Shishang looked at Ku-Er with a faint smile on his face, but his tone was extremely arrogant. The hall was very quiet right now. Many people had heard Shishang's words. Minai, what are you planning? Are you rebelling? Fei Qi was most worried about this troublemaker. Not a single person he'd sent out last night had returned. This morning, he'd only found the exploded car and the murdered vampires. If I wanted to rebel, you'd be lying on the ground already. Shishang laughed arrogantly. Forget it. I've been tired after all these years. Ku-Er shook his head at Shishang. Since Fei Qi wants it, I'll give it to him. He'd long since stopped caring about these trivial matters. When Fei Qi heard Ku-Er's words, he didn't even have time to pursue Shishang's rebellious words. Fei Qi hadn't expected things to go so smoothly. He looked very happy. Next, it was time for the various clans to get to know the new king. The vampire hunters also sent out a representative to give a simple congratulatory speech. They'd only been invited to witness the birth of the new king, so they had no right to interfere with who was chosen. The last step was for Ai Wei to accept the crown representing the vampire king. Ai Wei watched as Fei Qi walked towards her with the crown in his hands. The nervousness in her eyes finally receded a little. She was the vampire king. In the future, that woman Minai would have to bow respectfully whenever she saw her. Just as Ai Wei was about to accept the crown representing the vampire king, Shi Yin suddenly walked out. Shishang was stunned by Shi Yin's actions. Shi Yin, what are you doing? Shishang followed after him. Her voice drew everyone's attention to them. Shi Yin rubbed Shishang's head. Didn't I say I was going to give you a present yesterday? Shishang. He did say that, but she didn't take it to heart at all. This guy can't be thinking of killing all the vampires, right? It's such a great day, don't be so bloody. I'm still a baby. Shi Yin. Fei Qi froze when he saw the person who'd stepped out. Why is he here? Yesterday, Shi Yin had been standing in a corner without showing his face. Today, his head was lowered, so it wasn't strange that Fei Qi hadn't noticed him. But now that he'd stepped out, if he still couldn't recognize him, then he'd have lived in vain. Shi Yin. I'm going to show off. Do you want to vote? Chapter 293. Fei Qi's expression changed rapidly. In the end, he suppressed his anger and walked down from the stage. Lord Shi Yin. The other grand princes also had strange expressions, but they all stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Lord Shi Yin. When the crowd saw the grand prince's actions and heard how they addressed him, they quickly thought of a certain person and their expressions changed. They all bowed, their attitudes respectful yet cautious. Lord Shi Yin. Ai Wei was dumbfounded. She had no idea what was going on. This man, is he a vampire too? And here I thought you didn't recognize me. Shi Yin's lips curled into a disdainful smile. I wouldn't dare. Fei Qi lowered his head even further. Why is he here? Flooded his mind. More importantly, he's with me nigh. No wonder Ku-Er gave up his authority so easily. So he was waiting for me here. With Lord Shi Yin here, even the new queen would have to bow her head to him, let alone me. He's the most powerful vampire in terms of seniority. Who would dare find trouble with him? Aside from a few who knew the inside story, the rest of the vampire hunters were just as dumbfounded as Ai Wei. Who is this man? He's so awesome. Just by standing there, all the vampires bowed. There was a faint smile on Shi Yin's face. Bring me the crown. Fei Qi. What does Lord Shi Yin want with the crown? Lord Shi Yin. Shi Yin interrupted Fei Qi. I don't want to repeat myself. Fei Qi froze in place for a moment. Gritting his teeth, he turned around and brought the crown to Shi Yin. Shi Yin's slender fingers took the crown. Under everyone's confused and shocked gazes, he placed it on Shi Shang's head. A gift for you. He was willing to carry her to the throne. Shi Shang. But I don't want it. I only want you. Fei Qi and the other grand princes were stunned. The new queen has changed hands just like that? Fei Qi braced himself and said, Lord Shi Yin. Her Majesty Ai Wei came because of the prophecy. Your actions will put the vampires to death. And Shi Yin was focused on straightening Shi Shang's crown as he casually responded. He didn't care about the vampires' lives. He just wanted her to be happy. Very beautiful. Shi Yin praised her with a smile. Shi Shang took out a small mirror from somewhere and looked at himself in front of so many people. She looked like an idiot. How was she beautiful? Forget it, even if it was a dog's tail, he had to accept it. There was a strange silence in the hall. The development of this matter was a bit strange. What? Do you want me to teach you how to greet the king? Shi Yin narrowed his eyes and broke the silence. His tone was laced with traces of danger. Fei Qi suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. If he still had a sliver of hope earlier, then all that was left now was fear and trepidation. After glancing at the Shi Shang, he finally knelt down on one knee unwillingly. This was the highest form of etiquette among the bloodbreeds. Normally, this was only done during the coronation of the blood-breed king. Greetings, Your Majesty Minai. The surrounding people all knelt down. Greetings, Your Majesty Minai. Greetings, Your Majesty Minai. In view of your previous unfriendliness, all of you can kneel. I'm not such a magnanimous person. I turned to Ku'er and said, Godfather, please get up. Thank you, Your Majesty. Ku'er sighed inwardly. He hadn't expected Shi Yin to do this. If he had, he wouldn't have lowered his head to Fei Qi. Shi Yin was much more powerful than that prophecy or whatever it was. Fei Qi could only curse inwardly, not daring to move an inch. He'd clearly planned everything out and was just one step away. But Shi Yin, who shouldn't have appeared here, had appeared. And he'd even pushed me nigh to the throne. Second Uncle Ai, who was standing among the vampires, had a dark expression on his face. They were just one step away, but such a huge mistake had occurred. Only then did Ai Wei react and look at her second uncle. That man's identity was so powerful that he could make all the vampires acknowledge me nigh with just one sentence. Shi Shang had no intention of becoming the blood-breed king. The only reason he had them kneel was to avenge a personal grudge. All that talk about separating public from private interests was nonsense. Revenge was the most important thing. No matter how angry Fei Qi was, he still had to kneel. However, his gaze toward Shi Shang was somewhat unfriendly. What are you looking at? Shi Shang took out his iron sword and stabbed it in front of Fei Qi. Why don't we talk about the traitor? Fei Qi gritted his teeth. He looked at the gleaming iron sword in front of him and endured it. Your Majesty, what will it take for you to believe me? Why should I believe you? Shi Shang was amused. You're nobody to me. Does it matter if I believe you or not? Then does it matter if I'm the traitor or not? Fei Qi naturally didn't dare to say this. Shi Yin stood to the side. That indulgent look on his face made it seem like he wouldn't stop her even if she wanted to kill him. Even if he couldn't afford to offend her, couldn't he just hide? Just like that, Shi Shang inexplicably became the blood-breed king. Ai Wei seemed to have been forgotten. Shi Shang didn't even look her in the eye from start to finish. Ai Wei felt like she'd been slapped dozens of times. Her cheeks burned with pain. She was a joke the entire time. Fei Qi's ancient castle. Second Uncle Ai was furious. Fei Qi, you didn't tell me that Shi Yin had awakened. Fei Qi's expression wasn't good either. I didn't know when he woke up either. He's a member of your race. You still don't know when he woke up. Second Uncle AI grew more agitated as he spoke. Shi-in rarely returns to the vampires. No one knows where he hibernates, so how would I know? Fei Qi was furious. AI Chong, watch your attitude. He was still a prince. Even if they were working together, it didn't mean that AI Chong could speak to him like this. The atmosphere between the two was somewhat tense. AI Wei sat at the side, her face deathly pale. Her eyes were downcast, her thoughts unknown. AI Chong probably knew that he'd been too agitated. After a moment of silence, he gradually calmed down. What do we do now? What do we do? What else can we do? Fei Qi sneered. With Shi-in here, do you think I'd dare to do anything? They'd personally witnessed that man's strength. Wasn't provoking him the same as digging their own graves? Then we're just going to give up on the plan? AI Chong's face alternated between pale and pale. Fei Qi fell silent. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. You said that person disappeared. AI Chong didn't know why Fei Qi had suddenly changed the topic, but he still suppressed his anger and replied, I only heard about it. I'm not sure. He wasn't a core member of the vampire hunters, so he had no way of knowing about such a major matter. He'd only overheard Du Ju's men discussing the discovery of a tomb in the northern suburbs of the city. It was very likely that person was buried there. If that person disappeared, it means that someone might want to make a move. We might still have a chance. Fei Qi's eyes were filled with calculation. Fei Qi leaned over and whispered a few words into AI Chong's ear. AI Chong narrowed his eyes and glanced in AI Wei's direction. This is the only way. Think about it yourself. Fei Qi patted AI Chong's shoulder and turned to leave the room, leaving AI Chong and AI Wei alone. Asterisk pleading votes. Chapter 294. Shi Shang hadn't expected Fei Qi to show up so quickly. AI Wei and a few other princes followed behind him. They didn't look friendly at all. AI Wei's gaze towards Shi Shang was now filled with hatred. As a stepmother, Shi Shang didn't care at all. Shi Shang blocked the door, showing no intention of letting them in. Your Majesty, how could you forget the etiquette of hospitality? Ku'er spoke up from behind. Shi Shang remained unmoved. There's no need to entertain uninvited guests. They clearly knew she didn't welcome them, yet they still came knocking on her door. Weren't they just courting death? Ku'er didn't say anything else. He just stood there quietly. Although he was Minai's adoptive father, she was still his queen. Fei Qi's expression was somewhat unsightly, but he didn't flare up. He still had to bow. Your Majesty, I've come today to discuss something with you. If you have something to say, say it. Fei Qi. Just what does Shi-in see in this woman? Not only is she rude, she's also ridiculously arrogant. Fei Qi took a deep breath and told himself not to get angry. Only then did he say, it's like this. AI Wei came because of the prophecy. Regardless of whether it's true or not, it was left behind by our ancestors. Us old fellows have discussed and decided to give AI Wei the status of Holy Maiden. This way, even if the prophecy is true, there won't be any conflicts. What do you think, Your Majesty? Holy Maiden. What are these old farts up to now? The Holy Maiden of the vampires was almost equal in status to the Vampire King. However, every Holy Maiden had made outstanding contributions to the vampires. That was why they were bestowed the title. All right. Just as Fei Qi was about to convince her, Shi Shang lightly spat out 2 words. These 2 words stunned Fei Qi. He agreed so easily? If you're done, you can scram. Shi Shang's impolite attitude put Fei Qi in a difficult spot. But when he thought about how he'd achieved his goal, he decided not to argue with Shi Shang and left with his men. After they left, Ku'er stepped forward with a gloomy expression. Your Majesty, why did you agree? If they want it, then just give it to them. Shi Shang didn't care at all. Instead he asked, Does Godfather care about the throne? Godfather has long grown tired of fighting for power. There was a hint of nostalgia on Kerr's face. The Bloodbreeds weren't like this in the past. Since that's the case, I don't want to care about them anymore. Then foster father and Rue should leave this place and take a look at the human world. Kuer frowned slightly. Looking at Shi Shang's smiling face, he didn't ask anything. She was no longer the little girl who had lost her parents and hugged him and cried bitterly. She had grown up. All right. He had spent his entire life in the vampire race and hadn't had the chance to see the outside world. When Rue heard that he could go outside, he immediately tossed all thoughts of his beloved little princess to the back of his mind and eagerly left with Kuer. The vampires realized that their new queen didn't care much about their affairs. They couldn't even find her if they needed help. Even if they found her, she would be impatient and tell them to find someone else. He did not take back the power of the princes, nor did he issue any new policies. It was almost the same as when there was no king. That's not right either. The new king conferred a saintess. Because of what had happened before, they had accepted this saintess very well. Shi Shang didn't care, so Ai Wei gradually became the one in charge. Shi Shang was like a vampire king in name only. But the person in question didn't care at all. She ate, drank, and played with Shi every day. Shi, I thought of something. Shi Shang pushed open the bathroom door. Amid the splashing water, a man's muscular body was faintly discernible. Shi was a little embarrassed. He grabbed a towel and quickly covered his body. Where haven't I seen it before? What's the point of covering it up? Shi Shang despised Shi Yin's behavior. Shi paused. In the end, he didn't wrap the towel around himself. Instead, he turned off the water, his ears red. What is it? Shi Shang leaned against the bathroom door. How did you get that injury on your back when I brought you home? Shi paused in his wiping, his eyes darkening. Shi Shang took the towel from his hand and wiped the water off his body. You can't tell me? Then forget it. I was just asking casually. No. Shi followed Shi Shang's lead and put on his clothes. I just don't know how to say it. Shi Shang pushed him out and made him sit on the bed. He took out a hairdryer and helped him dry his wet hair. The hairdryer was a little noisy, so neither of them spoke. Only after the hairdryer and the noise was turned off did Shi Shang ask, Have you thought of how to say it? Shi glanced at Shi Shang, then suddenly leaned forward and nibbled on her lips. His low voice traveled into Shi Shang's ears. You remember Sikong Sa from Rose Academy, right? Because the plot had been edited out, she only knew that this guy wasn't a good person. In the end, he was killed by the male and female leads. As for the details, she didn't know. But what did this guy have to do with Shi? He's also a vampire, and he's always wanted to resurrect someone. Resurrect? Are you kidding me? In the cultivation world, resurrecting someone required a huge price. Shi nodded. He seems to want to get something from me, but I don't know what it is. When he met Shi Shang, he had just woken up and his body was still weak. Who knew that Sikong Sa would come looking for him? Heh. Looks like that woman was also sent by Sikong Sa. Impersonating me and getting close to Kuer. Looking for something. Shi Shang's rarely used brain was turning. Just as she reached a critical juncture, she suddenly felt a chill on her body. At some point, Shi had pressed her down on the bed and stripped her of her clothes. Shi Shang. Wasn't he so shy just now? Why was he so proactive now? His mouth said no, but his body was very honest. Perhaps Shi Shang had tossed and turned too much, for Shi fell into a deep sleep. Shi Shang put on a jacket and stood in front of the window. A cool breeze brushed past her cheeks, and the rich, somewhat stuffy fragrance of flowers swirled around the tip of her nose. She let her thoughts wander and pondered casually. Sikong Sa, Ai Wei. What did he want to do by getting close to Ai Wei? Resurrection, looking for something. Nai, you have to protect this painting well. You can't let anyone else get it. It's your life, understand? A memory suddenly surfaced in Shishang's mind, jolting her back to reality. The original owner of this body didn't have this memory. Someone had erased this part of her memory. The painting, that painting hanging on her wall? Mi Nai's memories had never revealed how she had obtained that painting. What if her parents had given it to her and then erased her memories? Shi-in said that the painting wasn't complete. That painting was very important. Even more important than Mi Nai's life. What kind of secret was hidden in it? Was it resurrection? Shishang rushed to Shi-in's bedside. She was about to wake him up when she saw his peaceful sleeping face with a faint blush. Shishang paused. There's no hurry. Let's talk about it tomorrow. Shishang climbed into bed and snuggled into Shi-in's arms. Shi-in unconsciously pulled her into his embrace, and the two of them fell asleep in an intimate position. Chapter 295. Two figures were slowly making their way deeper into the mountain forest shrouded in smoke. Their surroundings were very quiet. Not even the chirping of insects could be heard. It was as though they had entered a world of vacuum. The place you chose is quite interesting. Shishang leaned against a tree trunk and panted. How much longer do we have to walk? There are countless vampires who want to kill me while I'm asleep. Shi-in walked over quickly and crouched down in front of Shishang. I'll carry you. Shishang didn't hesitate and climbed onto Shi-in's back. Shi-in walked steadily but not slowly. He finally stopped at a cliff and put Shishang down. Shishang didn't even have time to ask before Shi-in jumped down with her in his arms. The wind blew against her face, freezing her to the bone. Shishang. Jumping off a cliff at the slightest disagreement? Shouldn't you at least be mentally prepared? Fortunately, the cliff wasn't very deep, so they quickly reached the bottom. It was a little dark down there, so Shi-in carried Shishang and walked forward. Finally, they entered a cave. There was a semi-transparent glass coffin in the middle of the cave. There was nothing else inside. Shi-in opened the coffin and rummaged around at the bottom for a while before taking out a rectangular box. The box was carved with flowers, birds, and auspicious clouds. It wasn't locked, but Shishang didn't open it. Shi-in smiled as he bit his finger and dripped a drop of blood on it. The box clicked open on its own. This anti-theft technology is simply amazing. Shishang opened the box. There was a painting inside. He took out the painting and unfurled it. Just like her painting, there were roses that covered the sky and earth, as if they were soaked in blood. What was different from her painting was that there was no one in this painting, only a coffin that was entangled by countless roses and vines, faintly revealing some color. Shishang looked at the glass coffin behind Shi-in with a strange expression. This is it. Shi-in placed Shishang's hand on the glass coffin. Shishang immediately felt an enormous amount of spiritual energy converge on him. Even in the cultivation plane, one could only sense such dense spiritual power in some of the immortal marshes. But this glass coffin, Shishang's expression changed. He put the coffin back into the space and said, "Let's go back." Shi-in's eyes flashed when he saw the huge glass coffin disappear, but he didn't ask any questions. When Shishang said go back, he didn't mean go back to the vampires, but to the villa in the human world. She went straight to her bedroom. The painting was still hanging on the wall. Shishang took it down and joined it with Shi-in's painting. The place where the flower was split was a particularly large rose, and the color was brighter than the other parts. If you looked at it separately, you wouldn't be able to tell anything. You would only think that the person who drew it did it on purpose. However, when you put them together, you would realize that the flower was different. But there was something wrong with the connection between the three. What did the boy mean? Was it Shi-in? What was that flower referring to? The only thing that was clear was the glass coffin. Shi-in looked at Shishang quietly. Seeing her frown, he reached out and stroked her forehead. If you can't figure it out, then don't think about it. I don't like hidden threats, especially when it's related to you. Shi Shang stared at the two paintings without looking up. Nai, you have to protect this painting well. You can't let anyone get their hands on it. It's your life, understand? Shi Shang didn't know why, but he suddenly remembered this. If Nai's parents had warned her, then did Shi Yin's parents tell him? Did your parents say anything to you? Shi Yin furrowed his brows. It had been too long, and he almost couldn't remember. But when he saw Shi Shang's serious expression, he tried his best to recall. When his mother had given him the painting, other than telling him that there was another half to it, she told me to protect this bracelet well. Shi Yin's fingers slid over the pendant on Shi Shang's wrist. His attitude was even more serious than when he'd given the painting to him. Shi Shang raised his wrist and examined it for a moment. The crescent-shaped pendant wasn't big, and it was dark green in color. But when light passed through it, it would show a faint yellow color. Time slowly passed. After who knew how much time had passed, Shi Shang closed the painting. His tense little face finally revealed a hint of a smile. I understand. The pendant, the glass coffin, and AI Wei. There was probably something inside the pendant, and the glass coffin provided a large amount of spirit energy. As for AI Wei, it was probably a special blood vessel or a special vessel, or perhaps both. After listening to Shi Shang's analysis, Shi Yin couldn't help but feel astonished. She'd managed to connect the dots with so few clues. Shi Shang only revealed an enigmatic smile. She hadn't analyzed the plot at all. She'd followed the author's train of thought. Combined with the clues she'd gathered, it wasn't hard for her to come to a conclusion. It was all a ploy. Of course, the most important thing was that she was smart. Sikong Sa would come knocking on her door sooner or later for these things. Shi Shang's intention was to destroy one of them. But she couldn't bear to part with the bracelet, and Shi Yin said she couldn't destroy the glass coffin. In the end, only the female lead was left. Did she have to destroy the female lead? Perhaps the female lead had been misled by Sikong Sa in the first place. Speaking of which, this female lead was quite unlucky. She'd been used from the start. If it weren't for the male lead, she probably wouldn't have survived to the end. She hadn't even done anything this time, but the female lead had already dug her own grave. Life wasn't static. Any small matter could change a person's life. Shi Shang left Shi Yin at home and went to Liang Ji's house alone. Before she left, she told Liang Ge she could go out, so Liang Ge wasn't home when she arrived. After a while, Liang Ge finally returned. Senior, you're back. Liang Ji's face was full of surprise. Then, she excitedly surrounded Shi Shang, her eyes sparkling. Did someone cause trouble for you? Shi Shang nodded casually. She'd checked the villa just now. The talisman hadn't been touched. No. Liang Ge shook her head. Ever since Senior left, the school had calmed down. The people who'd been watching her house had also retreated. That's good. Shi Shang patted Liang Ji's head. Then I'm leaving. Huh? So fast. Liang Ge looked at Shi Shang in disappointment. Shi Shang's lips twitched into a smile. I still have things to do. I'll return to school after I'm done. Only then did the disappointment on Liang Ji's face fade a little. Then be careful, Senior. Shi Shang left the villa, intending to go to the vampire hunter headquarters alone. However, he hadn't gone far when he ran into Shi Yin. He smiled at Shi Shang and opened the car door behind him. Let's go together. Shi Shang paused for a moment, then got in. How did you know what I was going to do? I saw you looking up information on them. Shi Yin drove the car onto the highway. You're my wife. Do you think it's appropriate for you to keep this from me? Shi Yin was a little helpless. You're the one who needs to be spoiled. Why did she always want to spoil him? He was a man, all right? If it were any other man, he'd have quit doing such a shameful thing. Since you're so disobedient, you can think of a way to make it up to me when we get back. Shi Shang cupped his face. Can I pay with my body? Shi Yin suppressed his laughter. Sure. Asterisk little fairy. Can you guys vote for Shi Shang to pay with his body? Chapter 296. The headquarters of the vampire hunters was underground. At this moment, all the core members were gathered in the conference room. Du Ju sat at the head of the table, and a surgery was being broadcasted on the screen behind him. The people in the conference room didn't even dare to breathe loudly as they stared at the screen. Soon, however, their faces were filled with disappointment. Buzz. Mr. Du, the surgery failed, someone in the operating room reported to Du Ju. Du Ju's expression darkened. Understood. Team leader, should we give up on this experiment? The people over there have been investigating recently. If they were found to have conducted this experiment, they would definitely be secretly executed by those people. Ordinary vampires have no way of completing the experiment, and we can't catch any purebred ones. Team leader, I also agree with giving up. Everyone, leave. Du Ju didn't reply, instead chasing everyone out. Team leader, someone is looking for you outside. The person who had just left returned. Looking for me? Who is it? I don't know, but he looks quite young. Du Ju frowned. To be able to find this place. I understand. Du Ju stood up and walked out. As he pushed open the door to the conference room, a strange look flashed across his eyes. The man sitting on the leather sofa heard the sound and raised his head slightly, a smile on his feminine face. Mr. Du, have you considered my proposal? Du Ju adjusted his glasses. Why did you come looking for me? He had met this man when he left the vampire clan, but before that, he had seen him before. Sikong Sa, a student from Rose Academy. He had even provided him with information on Mi Nai. But he had never imagined that he was also a vampire. And he had hidden it so well that even he hadn't noticed. Because Mr. Du has the ability. Sikong Sa appeared very calm. I can provide you with research materials. Isn't this what Mr. Du is lacking right now? Du Ju recalled the failed surgery and couldn't help but be tempted. If there were purebred vampires, what do you want me to do for you? Du Ju decided that as long as the conditions weren't excessive, there was no harm in agreeing. Don't worry, Mr. Du, I just need your help with a small operation in the future. Du Ju's gaze swept over Sikong Sa. After a moment of silence, he said, I will consider it. Then I will wait for your good news. However, Sikong Sa didn't receive any news from Du Ju. Du Ju was in a severe coma and could die at any moment. Fortunately, there weren't many higher-ups at the vampire hunter headquarters that day. However, when they were cleaning up the ruins, they discovered a secret laboratory built even further underground. The things inside made the vampire hunters feel apprehensive. Du Ju had been experimenting on vampires and humans. This kind of experiment was not allowed. The BHA began to investigate the matter, and everyone involved was arrested. There were vampires in the BHA in the first place. They immediately sent word to the vampires upon seeing such an incident. The vampires demanded an explanation from the vampire hunters. The ones conducting the experiments were humans, and the vampires were the victims. The vampire hunters had no way of quibbling. But how could they explain this? The people involved were still unconscious. He could only appease the vampires. But how could this kind of thing be appeased? It didn't take long for both sides to start fighting. As the instigator of this incident, Shi Shang secretly made things difficult for the vampire hunters. Not long after, the BHA disbanded. The treaty of the BHA was officially nullified. After 100 years of truce, the vampires and the vampire hunters once again began their war. The number of deaths around the world soared. The country's special forces joined the investigation and tried to mediate between the two sides. But when the special forces saw the information the vampires threw in front of them, they fell silent. It would be strange if the vampires didn't explode when their own people were captured and treated like this. This matter instantly became troublesome. The special forces requested to see the Vampire King. But the other party told them that they hadn't seen the king in a long time and that they should go find him themselves. In the end, the special forces negotiated with the vampires on one condition. The vampires would no longer target ordinary people. Shi Shang and Shi Yin returned to the vampires' territory. The vampires seemed a little empty. They had probably gone out to fight or hunt for food. When they returned to the castle, the butler saw Shi Shang and cried tears of joy. "King, you're finally back." "Lord Shi Yin." Seeing Shi Yin behind Shi Shang, the butler immediately lowered his head. Shi Shang walked inside. "What's the matter?" "The vampires and—" "I know. You don't have to say anything about this." Shi Shang interrupted the butler. The butler was stunned. The king and Lord Shi Yin should have returned from outside, so they definitely knew about this. "Tell me about the other news." "Yes." The butler told him everything that had happened after Shi Shang left the vampires. She hadn't touched the authority of the vampires, so without her around, those people could handle things very well. But to Shi Shang's surprise, the princes actually handed over their authority. And the one they handed over was Holy Maiden Ai Wei. When did Ai Wei become so smart? But that night, someone came to invite her to see Ai Wei. Yes, invite her, the king, to see the Holy Maiden. What a big face. How long has it been, and she's already trying to usurp the throne. "King, please be punctual tonight." Before the messenger could finish speaking, Shi Shang grabbed a vase on the table and threw it at the messenger. "I'm not in charge." "Don't you even know the rules?" The messenger was hit squarely. Although it didn't hurt much, he was still so frightened that he trembled and knelt on the ground. "King, please calm your anger. This subordinate is just following orders." "Following orders, huh?" Shi Shang sneered. "Go back and tell Ai Wei that if she wants to see me, she can come here herself." Scram. "Yes." The messenger scrambled out of the room. Because Shi Shang wasn't in charge, people like them trusted Ai Wei more. Without Shi Yin, Ai Wei would be the king. Thus, there were many who were dissatisfied with Shi Shang. Ai Wei had gotten used to being flattered by these people. With Fei Qi's help, the feeling of being high and mighty made her forget that she wasn't the king. Only when she heard the messenger's reply did she remember that woman was the king of the vampires. But now that the power was in her hands, Ai Wei had nothing to fear. Ai Wei dressed up and went to the castle to see Shi Shang. Accompanying her was a handsome man. The butler welcomed her in, his attitude polite and impeccable. But she didn't see any sign of Shi Shang. "Where's King?" Ai Wei looked around but didn't see anyone. She couldn't help but frown. The butler stood respectfully to the side and replied warmly, "Holy Maiden, please wait for a moment." Ai Wei glanced at the man beside her. The man smiled slightly, indicating for her to calm down. She waited for a few hours, and the housekeeper simply asked her to wait for a moment. In her heart, Ai Wei was cursing Shi Shang. This woman actually dared to play around with me. Pleading votes. Chapter 297. Just as Ai Wei was getting impatient from waiting, Shi Shang finally arrived. Shi Yin carefully supported her body, as if afraid she'd fall. Ai Wei couldn't help but curse inwardly. "So pretentious. It's just walking. Do you think you'll fall?" Shi Shang sat down on the main seat and yawned slightly. His lazy gaze landed on the man beside Ai Wei, and his lips couldn't help but curl up a little. "Senior, long time no see. I've underestimated you." She could even break through the 5 elements formation he'd set up. Now you know. Don't underestimate me in the future." Shi Shang's eyes curved into crescents. No matter how you looked at it, the smile on his lips felt mocking. Sikong Sa. This woman is so arrogant. Just how did she manage to live for so long? Sikong Sa looked at Shi Yin. Shi Yin's head was lowered as he played with Shi Shang's fingers. He didn't look at them at all. His attitude was one of complete disdain. Sikong Sa's hands clenched into fists. Why are you looking for me? Are you here just to watch me, the queen? Sikong Sa suppressed the displeasure in his heart, and a smile instantly appeared on his face. Minai, you don't have any power right now. How about we make a deal? Oh, you're making me a mere figurehead just to make a deal with me? Are you crazy? To her, power couldn't even compare to a single finger of Shi Yin's. Without any real power, you're just a puppet. Then you want to make me a puppet? Shi Shang started spouting nonsense. Sikong Sa. Why is it so tiring to talk to her? She doesn't know how to take the bait at all. Minai, you know what Sikong means. Why play dumb? Ai Wei looked at Shi Shang with a mocking expression. Oh. Even the female lead has learned this skill. Fine, tell me. What kind of deal do you want to make with me? Since the female lead has spoken, BBB, have to give her some face. You have a painting. Give it to Sikong, and we won't make things difficult for you. We'll let you leave the vampires. Say that again. Shi Shang's expression was strange. Am I hearing things? Does the female lead know what Sikong Sa wants? She's actually helping him. You will regret it in the future. Ai Wei was quite obedient. She repeated, I said, give the painting in your hand to Sikong, and we'll let you leave the territory. Oh my God, who gave you the guts to do that? If she wanted to leave the blood race, who would dare to stop her? He couldn't hack them to death. However, Sikong Sa had actually managed to find out where the painting was. As expected, he was quite capable. Shi Shang rolled his eyes and said, Sure, but you have to promise me one thing. Minai, do you think you can still negotiate terms with me right now? Sikong had already said that Shi Yin was nothing to fear. He could deal with him, so dealing with Minai would be much easier. Why not? In any case, she was still the vampire queen, and she had Shi Yin by her side. Why couldn't they negotiate? Take a look outside. A hint of pride appeared in Ai Wei's eyes. Shi Shang was unmoved. Ai Wei couldn't figure out what was going on with Shi Shang's behavior, so she could only ask Sikong Sa for help. Sikong Sa's attention had been focused on Shi's invisibility. Last time, he was able to injure him, so his strength should not be as strong as his. But why did he look like he didn't care at all? What terms do you have? If he could avoid fighting, he was willing to do so. Sikong. Ai Wei called out anxiously. How could he lower his head to her? The two of you just have to get married. Shi Shang's eyes curved into a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. They were as calm as still water. Sikong Sa had no idea what Shi Shang was up to. Ai Wei also had a strange expression on her face. Her condition was for her to marry Sikong? What kind of condition was this? All right. To him, this condition was not harmful at all. See the guest out. Shi Shang's lips curved. Female lead, I'll wait for the moment you discover the truth. News of Ai Wei and Sikong Sa's marriage immediately spread throughout the blood race. The new vampires weren't familiar with Sikong Sa, but the older ones were. He was the previous queen's male pet. Sikong Sa was originally a human, but unexpectedly, the queen took a fancy to him and forced him to become a vampire. At the time, he had a very loving fiancée. In order to make Sikong Sa stay by her side wholeheartedly, the queen took control of his fiancée. In order to save his fiancée, Sikong Sa had no choice but to stay by the queen's side. The queen purposely let his fiancée see him having sex with her. In the end, his fiancée ran off herself and was sucked dry by the vampires. When Sikong Sa found out, he only asked the queen to let him bury his fiancée. The queen didn't agree at first, but Sikong Sa said something to her and she finally agreed. After burying his fiancée, Sikong Sa stayed by the queen's side. Until the great battle 100 years ago. Sikong Sa schemed against the queen behind her back, then opened the blood race's barrier to lure the vampire hunters in. He himself was nowhere to be found. Now, This person actually wanted to marry their holy maiden. Naturally, there were many who opposed this, but there were also those who supported it. For example, Fei Qi. Fei Qi already knew why Sikong Sa stayed by the queen's side. A long time ago, there was a legend about resurrection. The specifics of this legend were only known by the previous queen. Sikong Sa stayed by the queen's side to listen for this information. He wanted to resurrect his fiancée. Fei Qi learned from Ai Chang that Sikong Sa's fiancée had gone missing. He knew he could use this information to his advantage. Sikong Sa had no interest in power and was a good partner to work with. Although the wedding took a lot of twists and turns, it was successfully held under Fei Qi's control. On the day of the wedding, Sikong Sa received a painting from Shi Sheng. Shi Sheng didn't swap the painting at all. He simply gave it to Sikong Sa as it was. The queen only told him that the secret of resurrection was in this painting. He studied it for several days but couldn't figure out anything. In the end, it was Ai Wei who pointed out that the coffin surrounded by roses was a bit strange. But even if he knew this, he couldn't do anything about it. He flipped through all the records of the blood race but couldn't find any mention of this coffin. In the end, he had no choice but to seek out Shi Sheng. Shi Sheng looked at Sikong Sa like he was an idiot. "Do you think I'll tell you? Minai, this isn't up to you." Sikong Sa waved his hand, and a group of people immediately rushed in. "Whoa!" Shi Sheng let out an odd exclamation. "Minai, you'd better tell me, or none of your people will live." Shi Sheng's expression changed. "You're threatening me? Who gave you the guts?" "Minai, don't test my patience. Even if I tell you, you might not believe me. Whether I believe you or not is my business." Shi Sheng was silent for a moment, then seemed to compromise. "That glass coffin is with Fei Qi." "Fei Qi?" Sikong Sa narrowed his eyes. "You'd better not lie to me, or you'll have to bear the consequences." Shi Sheng didn't reply. Only after Sikong Sa left did he smile. "I's lying to you. It's not a good time to kill people. I want to see you dogs bite each other." Asterisk pleading for votes. Chapter 298. When a person saw that hope was right in front of them, yet they couldn't find the stairs to it, they'd panic. Sikong Sa was currently in such a situation. In his heart, regardless of whether it was real or fake, he wanted to see for himself. However, Fei Qi was dumbfounded when he heard Sikong Sa's request. Since when did he have a glass coffin in his house? Wasn't he just looking for trouble? Apparently, the two of them had almost fought over this matter. In the end, Sikong Sa had forcefully searched Fei Qi's house. Reality proved it. Fei Qi really did have a glass coffin. Fei Qi couldn't even explain himself. He had no idea where this glass coffin had come from. However, Sikong Sa believed that Fei Qi was trying to use this to threaten him, and their partnership fell apart. Before the vampires could settle their external strife, another internal strife arose. Fei Qi seemed to have given up a lot of power, but in reality, he still had a lot. Hence, when the two sides clashed, it was 50-50. Neither side had the upper hand. Shi Sheng, the proper vampire king, still hadn't made a move. After some thought, they realized it was normal. Although she was the vampire king, she didn't have the slightest bit of power. Most people understood that it was difficult for two hands to fight four fists. Hence, some of the vampires who were originally neutral slowly began to take sides. The internal strife had begun. However, what they didn't know was that the vampire king, whom they didn't think highly of, had played many dirty tricks in the dark for this civil war to happen. This war lasted for half a year, and in the end, Sikong Sa emerged victorious. All authority in the vampire race was now in Sikong Sa's hands. All of the vampires had chosen to forget about Shi Sheng. Sikong Sa had also learned of the resurrection method from other sources. "Sikong, you haven't had a good rest these past few days. Sleep early." Ai Wei couldn't help but call out to him when she saw him standing by the bed. You sleep first, Sikong Sa replied without turning his head. Then, he left the room. Sikong, Ai Wei watched as Sikong Sa left without any hesitation. Her hands tightened around the covers. Sikong Sa left the room and went to the basement. There was plenty of light down there. In one of the rooms in the basement, there was an ice coffin. A mummified corpse lay inside. One could vaguely make out that it was wearing a Qing dynasty qipao. Sikong Sa looked at the mummified corpse in the ice coffin with a gentle gaze. He reached out and traced the mummified corpse's face on the ice coffin. We will be able to meet soon. Sikong Sa stayed in the basement for quite a while before returning to his room. Ai Wei had already fallen asleep. Sikong Sa stood at the head of the bed, his eyes fixed on Ai Wei. It was only when the sky outside began to brighten that he calmly lay down on the bed, held Ai Wei in his arms, and closed his eyes. The next day, not long after Sikong Sa left the castle, someone came looking for Ai Wei. Seeing Ai Chong with a broken arm, Ai Wei's expression turned ugly. Her eyes were filled with anger and resentment. This second uncle of hers hadn't stood by her side at all when Sikong Sa and Fei Qi were fighting. Instead, he'd fought with Fei Qi against them. In the end, he even wanted to kidnap her to threaten Sikong. Ai Chong's face was bitter. Xiao Wei, I know you hate me, but I'm doing this for my family. You're only doing this for your own benefit. He wanted to have the right to speak amongst the vampire hunters, not because of some family. Ai Chong's expression became serious. Xiao Wei, no matter what you think, second uncle, I'm here today to tell you something. Ai Wei felt some resistance in her heart. Her intuition told her not to listen. However, her body didn't budge an inch. That night, Sikong Sa returned. When he saw Ai Wei sitting alone in her room in a daze, his gaze darkened. A trace of a smile appeared on his face before he walked over. He hugged her from behind and rested his chin on her shoulder. I'm sorry. I've wronged you these past few days. Ai Wei's body trembled involuntarily, her face instantly turning deathly pale. Sikong Sa stood behind her, so he couldn't see her expression. However, he could feel her body's reaction. What's wrong? Ai Wei resisted the trembling and forced back the tears in her eyes. She shook her head. It's nothing. Too many things have happened recently. I'm a little. As if she couldn't finish her sentence, she lowered her head and began to cry. Sikong Sa frowned slightly, but he didn't think much of it. He turned to face her and hugged her, comforting her in a low voice. It's all in the past. Everything's fine now. Ai Wei grabbed Sikong Sa's clothes, her fingertips digging into her flesh through the fabric. Is it all in the past? No. Sikong Sa realized that Ai Wei had been acting a little strange these past few days. He couldn't help but feel worried. Time's almost up. We mustn't make any mistakes in the next few days. He sent someone to keep an eye on Ai Wei. If it had been the past, Ai Wei might not have noticed, but ever since Ai Chong had told her those things, she'd started paying attention. This discovery caused her heart to turn cold. She had no choice but to believe Ai Chong's words. However, there was still a sliver of hope in her heart. That sliver of hope had prevented her from tearing apart that final layer of paper with Sikong Sa. July 15th. This was the time of the year when the yin qi was at its heaviest. Xiao Wei, I'll take you to see something. Sikong Sa still looked at Ai Wei tenderly, as if she was the woman he loved the most. The last bit of warmth in Ai Wei's eyes dissipated. Her face stiffened as she nodded. Her voice was hoarse. Okay. Sikong Sa brought Ai Wei to a mountaintop. The moon hung high in the sky like a jade plate. Clear and bright moonlight spilled onto the ground, coating it with layers of silver frost. Ai Wei's eyes were covered, and there was only darkness in front of her. Just like that, she walked step by step into a place where there was no light. Why? Ai Wei's voice was extremely soft. It was somewhat scattered by the mountain breeze. But Sikong Sa still heard it. He paused, and the two of them stopped at the same time. You already know. Why? Ai Wei tore off the black cloth covering her eyes and screamed hysterically, "Why did you lie to me?" Her voice was carried far away by the wind in the dark mountains, startling the birds in the forest. The flapping of their wings added a bit of gloominess to the atmosphere. The gentleness on Sikong Sa's face disappeared, replaced by indifference. "Because I need you. But I'm innocent." Ai Wei's voice carried a hint of pleading. "Sikong, I'm innocent. I like you so much. Why are you doing this to me?" Sikong Sa looked at Ai Wei coldly, a hint of mockery in his eyes. "Like me? If you like me, then why did you go finds will lie behind my back?" Ai Wei's voice came to an abrupt halt, her eyes filled with panic. Sikong Sa took 2 steps forward and wrapped his fingers around Ai Wei's neck. "Did you think I didn't know? I couldn't tell that you liked me that much." "No, She had indeed gone to finds Walai, but he wasn't even willing to see her. Intense hatred suddenly burst forth from Sikong Sa's eyes. "What's more, you're the daughter of my enemy. Today's situation is all your mother's fault." "What are you talking about? What enemy's daughter?" Asterisk, ha ha ha, it's starting to torture the female lead. After torturing the female lead, it's time to torture Sikong Sa. One by one, they won't be able to escape. Chapter 299. Ai Wei stared blankly at Sikong Sa. Sikong Sa pushed her away. Ai Wei stumbled and fell onto the rocky ground. "Why do you think you survived that fire?" Memories of that fire flashed through Ai Wei's mind. The pain she'd experienced was frightening. "Why do you think the vampires recognized you based on a single prophecy when there were so many of them? Why do you think Fei Qi helped you so much? She was human. How could she be recognized by the vampires?" She'd asked Fei Qi that before. But Fei Qi had said she was different. How was she different? She'd never met her parents. Ai Chong had single-handedly raised her. Ai Chong had said her parents had died long ago. Who was she? "I drugged her back then, but I didn't expect her to still get pregnant. She even gave birth to you at the last moment. However, I still have to thank her. Otherwise, I wouldn't know where to find a special person like you." He wasn't the only man the Queen had back then. Vampires had an extremely low chance of getting pregnant. He'd only been a low-level vampire back then. The only ones capable of impregnating the Queen were those few purebred vampires by his side. Sikong Sa approached Ai Wei step by step, his expression sinister. "You'll pay for your mother's sins." Ai Wei's mind was filled with disbelief. How could she be the daughter of the Vampire King? She was only 18. The Vampire King had been dead for so long. She couldn't possibly be the Vampire King's daughter. Impossible. And she didn't suck blood. She definitely couldn't be the Vampire King's daughter. She couldn't be. Sikong Sa picked Ai Wei up from the ground and strode towards the 2 coffins in the distance. Beneath the coffins was a drawing of the 8 trigrams. The 2 coffins were placed on the poles of Yin and Yang. Sikong Sa tossed Ai Wei into the empty ice coffin. "Sikong, you must be mistaken." "I'm not." Ai Wei grabbed Sikong Sa's hand, her face as pale as paper. "Think about it. I'm only 18. How could I be the daughter of the Vampire King? I don't have any desire to suck blood. I'm not a vampire." "You must be mistaken." Sikong Sa pressed her into the ice coffin and looked down at her from above. "Fei Qi sealed you away when you were born and hid you for almost 100 years. He only gave you to Ai Chong 18 years ago to raise. Of course you thought you were only 18 years old." Pausing for a moment, he continued, "You've never drunk blood before, so of course you wouldn't have any desire. But have you ever eaten anything after being in the Blood Clan for so long?" Ai Wei was stunned. Ever since she'd arrived in the territory, she hadn't eaten anything. Her stomach had always been full. "It's not like that." She wasn't. Ai Wei wanted to struggle, but she found that she couldn't move at all. She watched helplessly as Sikong Sa pricked her blood vessel with the needle. Blood flowed out from the tip of the needle and quickly filled up the thin tube connected to the needle. Sikong Sa led one end of the tube to another coffin. She could vaguely see a person lying inside. Ai Wei could feel the blood flowing out of her body rapidly, but she couldn't move. Why, none of this is right. Things shouldn't be like this. Ai Wei suddenly froze. What's going on? Sikong. She suddenly called out in a very weak voice. Sikong Sa turned around and looked at her. Ai Wei forced a smile onto her face. Can you hug me again? Sikong Sa remained unmoved. Seeing as we've been together before, can you hug me again? Sikong Sa hesitated for a moment, then bent down and hugged her. He quickly released her. As he stood up, Ai Wei exerted all the strength in her body and kissed him on the lips. Sikong Sa frowned and pushed her away forcefully, wiping his mouth in disgust. Ai Wei chuckled, then closed her eyes. Tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. Why didn't I listen to Zualai back then? If I'd been with Zualai, I wouldn't have been used by Sikong Sa like this. So cold. There seemed to be the sound of a clock ticking in the air. At some point, the moon had moved to the center of the room. The array on the ground resonated with the moonlight, emitting a faint white light. Sikong Sa stood at the periphery, looking nervously at the glass coffins. The light from the array grew brighter and brighter, finally enveloping the two coffins. When the light dissipated, Sikong Sa rushed to the glass coffin. The mummified corpse inside was soaked in blood. The corpse, which had been well preserved, had rotted away in the blood, revealing the white bones. How could this be? Sikong Sa clung to the coffins, his eyes filled with disbelief. How could it fail? Why didn't she revive? Because you're still missing two things. A clear female voice came from the darkness. Sikong Sa's bloodshot eyes abruptly turned to the source of the voice. A girl in a long black dress slowly walked out of the darkness, followed by a tall man. Me Nai. Sikong Sa squeezed the words out from between his teeth. His bloodshot eyes seemed to want to tear her apart. Are you very angry? What's there to be angry about? You didn't ask me. That's why she didn't revive. It's all your fault, Shishang said innocently with his arms crossed. Sikong Sa was so angry he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. If he asked her, would she tell him? I would. Shishang seemed to know what Sikong Sa was thinking. After all, I'm a living Lei Feng who loves to help others. Even if I tell you, you won't be able to get it. What does it matter if I tell you or not? What else is missing? Give it to me. Sikong Sa stood up and looked at Shishang with a ferocious expression. Shishang raised his hand and waved the pendant in his hand. This. Sikong Sa's mind exploded with a bang. That painting flashed through his mind. A person, a coffin. That person isn't talking about Ai Wei, but the pendant she's wearing? And you've also gotten the method wrong. Shishang put down his hand and tossed a tattered book over. This is the correct resurrection method. You can't do without any of it. Sikong Sa's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. A total of 4 things were needed. The yellow spring water in the pendant, the glass coffin, the blood of a person of extreme Yin, and the blood-soaked roses. However, the book he had obtained recorded that. He turned to Shishang and glared at Shishang like an enraged lion. It's you. You swapped the books, didn't you? You're overthinking things. How would she know where Sikong Sa had gotten that method from? How would she know where he'd swapped the books? Shi-In had dug out this book from his family's abandoned castle. Give it to me. Sikong Sa suddenly rushed forward, trying to snatch the bracelet from Shishang's hand. He still had a chance. He could still resurrect her. Shishang dodged to the side, and Shi-In kicked Sikong Sa in the stomach. Sikong Sa flew backward, crashing into the glass coffin. The glass coffin flipped over, and the blood inside immediately flowed out. No. Even if you resurrect her, the price you have to pay is your death. If she lives and you die, what's the point? If you really love her that much, you should go down and accompany her. Shi Shang stood in the distance, coldly watching as Sikong Sa lifted the glass coffin. Asterisk request votes. Double monthly votes. Request votes T-T. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.